Live for your home, that's what the father always told our protagonist. The meaning of that is that he didn't want him to desire anything and always be a shadow of his older brother. Our hero falls to the ground and the soldiers around say they never imagined that it was possible for one person against so many knights. A long-haired guy says it's expected from the brother of that person. Cyan leaks. The guy in front of him is Boris, who gives a twisted smile while Cyan asks who sent him. With daggers in hand, he wants to know if it was the Emperor. Seeing him activate the power, Boris says that mist is disgusting, and he's an assassin from the Mist group. Because of this, he will be eliminated for affiliating with the heretics. Shen wishes him good luck to try to get out of here alive, but Boris tells him that he has already placed a barrier of 9 stars in this place. The protagonist knows he has to get out of there urgently and find out who caused the incident with his brother, telling Boris that he will break any barrier he has raised when suddenly someone says enough Cyan. Cyan is startled and doesn't know what to say, remembering his father's words. Live for your home and your brother. Eshel is the house itself. The success of the house depends on the success of Eshel. Cyan can't believe it. The guy behind it all turns out to be his brother after all. He falls to his knees as Eshel says he must be wondering why he's there. The brother approaches and Cyan asks what that means. Eshel says he has done his job very well so far, but for this house and for his own brother, he will release him from sins. Cyan can't understand what he did wrong. Looking at his miss, Eshel says that is disgusting and long ago he was no longer human. He shouts at him saying he has been deceiving everyone. Cyan thinks about those words and loses his mind. What he's saying doesn't make sense. The difficulties with the Empire's throne, the subjugation of the Demon King's army, the continent unification war. He helped his brother win all of that and conquer everything he has. He punches the ground saying that the life he received he dedicated to this person, but now he wants to throw him away after he has come so far, when he worked like a dog for 20 years. Cyan says that even if his body breaks, he will give everything he has at this moment, since he can kill him. The soldiers are incredulous at the mana he still has. Transformed, Cyan says his brother is shameful, being the only hero and trying to kill a family member. Eshel looks angrily and Cyan goes for it. He's easily defending himself while Cyan says he only needs one attack. He sees an opportunity and goes for the blow, but hits against a barrier. The fight is not one-on-one and Boris is protecting Eshel, who takes advantage of this to strike a blow to Cyan's belly. With the sword in his belly, he says he thought about letting him go easily, but he really showed the dark side in the end. It really is a relief that he never trusted him for a second. He pulls out the sword, kicks Cyan, and leaves with the group. Fallen, Cyan thinks it's a ridiculous end. It makes no sense to die like this. From one moment to the next, he attacks Eshel again, tells him to die, and puts the dagger to his neck. But an explosion of light sweeps through his body. A voice calls for a young master, and a boy wakes up sweaty in bed. The maid asks how long he's going to sleep, and Cyan asks if it's Emily. Looking at her, he thinks it's been 20 years since they met, but she looks the same as the day he met her. He recognizes the room as the one he lived in when he was younger, and it hits him that he has returned to the time when he was a child. Emily tells him to stop messing up the bed and go to training, and Cyan wonders what training she's talking about. Stating that he's back in the Vert family duchy, he's sure it's the past. Maybe they are memories, but he remembers perfectly. This was on March 1st, 27 years ago, a year before he entered the academy. At the beginning of each month, there was an open training fight for the public. It was an important event even for his father. His opponent was a boy named Cyan Vert, a brother who was also born from another mother, but was the same age as him. His mother, Marguerite, was the official wife of the Duke. Because of this, her son received much more attention. Shin, being the son of an illegitimate wife, was humiliated that day, and that's when his father told him to do nothing and give up. Emily asks why he doesn't give up, while Cyan now says he's just going to win quickly, but he hesitates when he realizes that a simple thin sword is extremely heavy for this body. Now he is sure it's not a dream or a memory, but he hadn't heard of magic like this, and wonders if he really went back in time. Cyan says it's incredible that he didn't run away, and when Cyan looks at his father, he tells him to start. The brother goes up asking where he's looking, and clearly he's confident it's going to be easy, but Cyan wonders why he's so slow. A step to the side and the brother cuts the wind. Cyan says he's a coward and comes to give another attack, but he takes a blow to the hand that makes him drop the sword. A kick to the shin and he writhes in pain, falling to the ground crying. The mother calls for the boy while the father seems interested. Seeing him on the ground, Cyan knows that if he puts the blade to his neck, it's over. But he remembers that in the past, this guy tormented him, and the bullying continued even at the academy. So now he has to end him so that he never thinks of doing something like that again. In this second life given to him, he will live for himself. The fight ended with Cyan being completely defeated. The Duke postponed the plans because he wanted to talk to Cyan, and even put one of the knights who worked for him to keep an eye on him. In the corridor, he sees Cyan's mother and is sure she's back from the infirmary. With a mischievous smile, Cyan asks if her son's okay. Duchess. She says he is shameless to say that after what he did to his brother. Cyan ignores her, saying it's normal for this to happen in training. The The Duchess says that's why you don't talk to illegitimate children. Filthy mother, filthy child, and you should have stayed picking up trash from the streets. Cyan looks back thinking she crossed the line and wondering if he should kill her. But he smiles, remembering that he knows how to make her suffer gradually, and tells her he will enter the same academy as Krantz, and she asks what he means by that. He wants to know if she doesn't care about her son and his graduation. She frowns and goes to slap him, asking how he dares to say something like that. But the guard protects Cyan and apologizes to her. But the Duke calls the boys so they can't linger there. He stares at the Duchess and tells her they are leaving. She remains with a closed face but doesn't have much to say. And Cyan did this because he knows the Duke's order is absolute. And the night there was ordered to protect him. In the room, his father tells him to come in. Cyan enters and introduces himself. While he thinks that the last time he met this guy like this was 15 years ago. Duke Wallace Vert, who tells him to sit. People call him the protector of the continent, the one who with his magical power and military strategies stopped the demon's attack. Even if a whole army of the Demon King wanted to kill him, all he wanted was peace for this continent. But that's just how he was in Cyan's memories. Someone who dedicated his whole life to serving people and being an admirable man. The first thing Wallace says is that he noticed he saw the sword and dodged. Cyan is confused. But Wallace says that when Krantz attacked him, he saw the trajectory of the sword easily and turned aside to avoid it, and asks when he learned this kind of fencing. Cyan is impressed with how attentive he is and says he learned it on his own. Wallace says that as far as he knows, Cyan had no interest in fencing or he was hiding his skills. The explanation says he didn't want to stand out too much, while Wallace says it's amazing that he defeated Krantz even acting like that. But he stops and then asks why he hit his brother like that in the end. Cyan thinks, is he recognizing me as someone strong? And then says he wanted to prove something. Wallace asks what he wants to prove. Our hero says that even though he is a brother, he wanted to prove that he is better than Krantz. The father begins to laugh and says it's amazing to have such a direct and clear answer like that. He hopes that Cyan will one day become a strong ally of Eshel. The name Eshel scares our protagonist, who wonders why he would want to be an ally of that guy. In the end, his father's obsession with Eshel hasn't changed at all. He clenches his fists without saying anything. And Wallace says there's no reward ceremony, but he can ask for something. Cyan's plan is very obvious. He wants to end everything that Eshel wants to do, so he tells his father that he wants something special. The maid asks if he really wants to go to the front line of war. He says yes and is sure, but she wants to know if he's out of his mind. He has no idea how terrifying that place is. It's full of demons, monsters, and creatures. In the west of the Old Empire, there's a place known as the continent's front line, a battlefield where an endless war against the demon army has been going on for 100 years. Because of this reason, his father, who was hesitant at first, gave a condition. He would have to be qualified enough to go to that place, but Cyan didn't exactly know what he meant by that. But one thing is certain, he just has to get stronger and faster as soon as possible. Fortunately, he still has all the battle knowledge from before the regression, and he can feel a bit of demonic power within him, so he just has to train and eventually he'll be able to use it. Suddenly the door opens and someone shouts his name. With a hand on his hip, he recognizes his big sister Elise. Welcome. She grabs him by the collar, and the maid asks where she was while she's asking Cyan if he's crazy. She heard that he asked his father to go to the front line while Cyan is begging her to let him go. Ellis drops him to the ground and says he's getting too cocky for beating Krantz, and she yells in his face telling him to go to the roof now. Outside the castle, the two meet on a bridge, and Ellis says it will start when he touches the sword, then he just has to resist for 3 minutes and she'll allow him to go to the front line. Cyan wants to know if they really need to do that. Ellis ignores him and says she has a question. Is he planning to succeed in the family by any chance? Cyan is caught off guard, but he has no interest in that. Before he can answer, Ellis tells him to draw his sword. While Cyan thinks he barely regressed and he's already having to fight twice. Without saying anything, Elise goes for it because he touched the sword, which scares him without knowing why. He manages to defend her blow, and she's incredulous that he managed to block that. While Cyan is scared that she's really going all out against a brother 7 years younger, she steps back with grace and beauty, while thinking it's impossible for him to have blocked her long sword with that thin rapier. He's already gnashing his teeth thinking it's luck. She says he's apparently better than she thought. Cyan realizes he's in trouble now, and she goes for it with a sequence of cuts that's hard for Cyan to dodge. She jumps to prepare a vertical attack. Cyan manages to defend the shoulder side. Her blade slips past his and ends up going straight for her neck. Ellis is startled and Cyan realizes he did something stupid. He spins his arm and they both step back. Standing on the pillar, he thinks it would have been dangerous. If he hadn't moved the sword, he would have killed her now. The assassination techniques he learned are all for instant death. He doesn't know how to fight without killing someone. But she wants to continue this for 3 minutes. It will be dangerous for her. Maybe he could put mana into the blade, but he's already running out of energy. Suddenly, Elise starts chanting, asking the earth and the wind to become her sword. Cyan recognizes it immediately as a 6-star magic. Elise's blade starts to glow with the activation of the water blade. Cyan is now crying she really wants to kill me. This wasn't a test. Elise keeps repeating to herself that she can't lose under any circumstances. On the corner of the wall, Cyan's problem is that if he reflects her attack, either he'll end up killing her or throwing her off. If that's the case, he jumps towards her. She raises her sword, releasing a beam of light. Cyan asks for something to stop hesitating and come out already. As Elise is preparing to deliver the blow, right before impact, a knight enters between them, saying enough. He blocks Elise's attack with his sword and grabs Cyan by the collar. The impact resonates throughout the castle, and the knight stares Elise down, saying she went too far against the young boy. Cyan feels relieved. He had been waiting for this guy to show up, but he took too long. Seeing the blade, Elise seems to regain consciousness. She then rushes and hugs Cyan, apologizing, saying she lost control. She cries on his shoulder, saying all she didn't want was for him to go to the front line because she'll be very worried. Embraced by her, Cyan thinks she truly is Nanin, a person who studied in one of the S-grade schools and was one of the most highly qualified swordsmen. Moreover, she had a beautiful face and was recognized as the daughter of a god. Everyone thought she would be the next continent's protector alongside Eshel. However, not long after joining the Knights of Light, she got a miserable end. He hugs her, saying he missed her, and at this time he will protect her. Elise asks the knight why he's here if he's the Duke's protector who left. The knight says he's here obeying the Duke's orders to protect the young master. Cyan thinks he sensed this guy's presence since he left the office. That's why he was angry he didn't show up. Passing out, he just doesn't understand why his father ordered to protect him in hiding. He then loses consciousness on Elise's shoulder, who smiles, thinking he's still a child. The next day, she returned to the academy and he resumed training to prepare to meet his father. All he could do was push his body to the maximum to increase stamina. However, poor thing is fading. 10 push-ups is the maximum he can handle. Remembering his muscular version, he thinks he'll need drastic measures. Suddenly, Emily enters the room and says Elise sent something for him. However, she says it's too stinky and asks what it is. After Elise attacked him, Cyan asked for hellhound blood as a gift of apology. Because of the terrible smell and disgusting appearance, everyone thinks it's poison, but in fact, it has the power to permanently increase the stamina of whoever drinks it. Pinching her nose, Emily asks if he's really going to drink that, and he says yes. Taking a big gulp, he says he's the only one who can eat Emily's food, so this is fine. Already remembering the purple mushroom soup she made and how much worse it was, he smacks the pot on the table and says it was delicious, exuding an aura. Calling for Emily, who wants to know what happened, he looks back with red eyes and says he's going for a walk because he wants to see the effect of the medicine and then leaves the castle. Standing aside, he says he's been wanting to come here for a long time. This was the place he came to when he wanted to be alone. Another day, a revelation from the God of Light came to Eshel, his brother, about an ancient temple that was in that place, and Cyan was skeptical about it. Leaning against the ground, he says no one knows about the revelation yet. The ground cracks and a red mist starts to emerge. While Cyan says what he's about to do, Eshel would never imagine. Looking at the underground passage, Cyan wonders if it's time to go. Walking inside, he says it's different from before. This place served the God of Light until everything there was devastated. This happened during the Holy War 300 years ago. Cyan says a place like that is almost unbelievable. On the altar, he sees a shining sword and recognizes it as the owner of that temple. In the year 999, humans finally managed to drive out the demons from the Empire of Velhas. It was when they discovered artifacts called God's Treasures. One of the artifacts was the sacred sword Drandark, which led humans to war against the demons, the same sword that Eshel used to kill him in that tragic end. Staring at the sword, he imagines it to be related to his regression. He touches it hesitantly but then lowers his head, saying he knew nothing would happen. He then kicks it in disgust and leaves, saying this sword made him feel like trash. The shadows appear beneath the light and Cyan says he found what he was looking for. Looking at the ground, he says anyone would think that's the shadow of the sword. However, that's not just a shadow there. He touches the ground, saying wherever there's light, there's shadow. Stairs appear, leading to a door in the darkness. Cyan opens the door hesitantly, and when he looks at the altar, he finally found what he wanted, the demonic blade Karim. He wields the dagger with an engraved crystal. Then he tells the blade it can wake up now. He continues cutting in all directions, already hesitant seeing that it seems to be sleeping. But it's quite thrilling to cut with the blade he used his whole life, really tasty. Suddenly, a shadow starts emerging from the ground, saying he was a very brave child. She asks Cyan if he doesn't know the meaning of taking that dagger, and he says it means it's his now. The shadow keeps growing, saying she can't believe he really woke up a demonic blade. With a macabre smile, she says it's too late. She swoops towards him, shouting that his body now belongs to her. But Cyan grabs her by the neck, which confuses her. The face emerges from the shadows, and Cyan says he didn't have much to do at that time. The blade asks how he can touch her, and he replies he already said, now she's his. With pink nails, she sends a slash he manages to dodge, stepping back. The blade takes advantage to get some distance. And boy, this is the strongest weapon I've ever seen a protagonist have around. It's really a danger to society. She asks who he is. Seeing the shadow leaving her body, she wants to know if he's the hair. Or at least she wants to know why he has the hair's energy. And he says yes, he's the hair. Now that he's the master, it's good for her to stay quiet and bow her head. Karam is seething with anger, saying he's just a kid. She attacks him, saying she won't accept this. While defending himself, Cyan knows the blade's goal is to steal the user's body, so there won't be much to do. She's about to hit him when he wonders if he should go easy or not. With a smirk, he activates control of the demonic blade. Karam is thrown to the ground, not understanding what happened. Shen warns he'll only say this once, it's good for her to accept it, while he's being nice. Suppressed, Karam wants to know how he's managing to use this ability. Shen activates control of the blade again, burying her head in the ground. Before she can say anything, she activates a few more times. Seeing her buried, he asks if she understands now, and she says she really recognizes him as the master now. He's about to use the power again when she calls him Lord. With that, Cyan completed the objective there, and wonders if he should return before they miss him. Karam in his hand says she's eager to feel the fresh air outside, and curious about his name, she asks him. Upon hearing his name, the blade asks if he really was chosen as the hair. Cyan says yes, but it was in the past life. Karam is confused about this past life thing, and he says he died once. She's even more confused, thinking he's crazy. As he approaches the sword, she says it's sleeping, and our protagonist warns the owner will appear in 20 years. Karam wants to know how he knows that while he already pulled the blade. Without hesitation, he cuts the handle. She's curious about why that. Cyan says he has no idea anymore, and it'll be an interesting future. In the morning, a carriage was leaving the Verti castle. The promised date as Cyan had come very quickly. He introduces himself to his father, who says he wants to ask once more. Is he really determined to go to the front line? Cyan says yes, his heart is already there. The father then tells the knight to release the beast. The knight takes a scroll, and Cyan wonders if he'll use his summoning spell. He opens a scroll glowing with a red pentagram. A creature with flaming back starts to emerge. Cyan recognizes it as a hellhound. Seeing the creature, he assured his father, and the knights prepared this test well for him. Everyone's hands are ready to draw the sword, and he realizes everyone is being cautious with his life. The father warns that everything comes with responsibility, and he must prove his will by passing this test. Hearing the word test, the knight hesitates. He was confused when Cyan asked to train against him. Our protagonist said he had 3 days until the test and needed to prepare as best as possible, and he asked the knight for help in practicing combat techniques. The knight said if he wanted to train, he should ask Krantz or someone his age. Cyan plays dumb, saying he doesn't know why, but Krantz messes him up every time he sees him. In a difficult situation, the soldier realizes the protagonist smiles when the knight says he'll grant this wish. However, he won't draw his sword, and all he'll do is defend himself. Cyan thanked him and asked for just one more thing. He wasn't to inform his father about anything that happened there, and that was an order. Yelkin hesitated, not understanding why he said that, when suddenly Cyan lunged towards him. Yelkin managed to defend the first attack. However, he was disbelieving at the strength of a 10-year-old kid. He realized Cyan's movements were very fast, vanishing in front of him. Cyan was already above him while he wondered where the kid went. He felt something and turned to block the attack. Cyan kept striking relentlessly, and after a few attacks he gave up, saying unfortunately he still couldn't beat him. But he told Yelkin it was a great job and thanked him for the help. Almost exhausted, Yelkin said he did a great job too. While he couldn't believe that Skinny Kid was so strong, if what he felt that day is correct, the current gun master will be able to pass any test given to him. The Hellhound faces Cyan and lunges for the attack. He seems calm seeing the creature coming to bite. A slash passes through the Hellhound's eye, causing it to fall to the ground. Looking back, Cyan says with his current strength, he needs to finish this as quickly as possible. The Hellhound gets up and he knows he has to end it with this attack. He prepares and suddenly the slash has already passed through the Hellhound's head, completing the blow with a blade throw from the air. The present knights are all startled, while his father smiles. Seeing the carcass on the ground, Cyan says it's a waste he let so much blood be lost. But he knows if he starts drinking that, the guys will think he's crazy, so it's better to leave it be. Wallace then comes to congratulate him, saying it was incredible. Since that's the case, they'll meet again on the front lines. Cyan thanks his father, while Karen is calling for him. Asking if she's just a kitchen knife, our boy says no, she's a demonic blade. She then wonders why she's not being used. She can only regain her powers by consuming blood. Heading towards the Hellhound, she's begging just for a lick, but Cyan tells her not to worry. He'll use her as much as she wants. The northern battlefield is invaded by ogres. The bell tolls, and Wallace warns not to let any escape alive. The soldiers raise their swords, activating the Salvation Prison. A huge shining cross appears on the battlefield, and a magic circle appears at the feet of all the ogres. Ropes of light come out of the circles and bind them, and Wallace orders everyone to attack. With them immobilized, the soldiers seem to easily defeat them. One of the ogres screams as a soldier approaches. He grips the blade tightly, preparing for the attack, and with a single blow, he decapitates the monster. Nearby, Cyan and Emily watch the battle, and she's terrified. She asks him why he brought her to a place like this. Cyan thinks strangely he missed this place. Wallace asks him what he thinks about being on the front lines, and he says he's kind of nervous. The father warns he can return anytime and that he could die in this place, so he better not let his guard down. Cyan smiles, saying he'll keep that in mind. On the front lines, death is common and 3 or 4 battles happen every day. Strategically, the knights try to prevent the advance of the demonic lines, and the tent where Cyan is the farthest from everything and the safest. The problem is, now that he's being watched, he can't find a chance to feed Karen. While he wonders if he'll have to wait until night, he asks Emily what she's doing under the covers. She's desperate, saying Duke warned that they could die at any moment. Shannon tells her to pack up and leave then. However, she screams it's impossible, he can't be without her. It's full of demonic monsters here. Who will take care of him if she flees? Suddenly, she leaves the tent, saying she'll get something to eat, while Shan wants to ask about the cloak he requested. But she just ignores him. He gets angry because this damn woman never obeys him. Sometime later, he placed a doll of himself in bed thinking maybe that's enough. When Emily asks if he's really going to exercise in this place, she says he's very diligent, and if Duke finds out, he'll be proud. Shan ignores her and says he's leaving and she can sleep there peacefully. He looks back and warns to say he's sleeping if anyone asks anything. At this moment, they need as many soldiers on the front line as possible, so now he can move freely. He activates an ability that allows him to glide with the mists, and he advances to a dangerous area where he finds a group of hellhounds. However, he's excited because there's the perfect place to test Karen, who, when summoned, smells blood, and tells Cheyenne she can't take it anymore. She needs to cut through something. The hellhounds leap towards him, and Cheyenne tells her to feed as much as she wants. With that, he begins to kill the creatures, activating an ability called Furious Mist Storm. After finishing the hellhounds, he pulls the blood from their heads and drinks it. With a crazy look, he says that's what he wants, while Karen is excited. He tells her they'll keep hunting, and she says those creatures are too weak. But Cheyenne warns her not to worry since the night is young, and there's plenty of monsters. Kieran says she's excited. A carriage travels through a mountain, and inside it, a girl with white hair is transported. Inside, the person warns that place is very dangerous, and they should retreat. But the girl says not to treat her like a child. She's a princess of the Empire, and it's her duty to assist the family. And if a woman says anything else, she'll take out her anger on her. The girl then warns that young Master Verti is also on the front lines and is the same age as her. She asks if Duke had the courage to bring the youngest boy. The friend replies no, actually it was the boy who volunteered. Since they're the same age, they can be friends. But the princess says she's not interested and she's going to sleep. Her friend replies okay. But the princess now wants to know what the name is. The helper replies it's Cyan Verti. Under the moonlight, she ponders that name. Meanwhile, harpies are being cut down, and Wallace is giving orders to look after those who were injured. On the battlefield, dozens of harpies and griffins are dead as they're ready to return to base. He looks to the side and someone pulls a sword from atop a harpy. It was Shan who participated in that battle. Wallace asks if he's adjusting well to the front lines. Shannon says yes, he's learning a lot every day, and his father warns that he thought you would want to go back home. But he's been here for a while now and he's very proud. These words leave Cheyenne incredulous, and his father leaves, saying there's something to talk about tomorrow morning. Cheyenne agrees while thinking it's the first time he's seen his father with a proud expression. That same night, Cheyenne went out to hunt once again. What he found was a death worm that normally hides deep in the valleys. Karam told him he looked very tired because he wouldn't let her take over the body, but Cheyenne said she was being too obvious. She insisted, saying the worm's flesh regenerated much faster than he could hit. Despite not wanting to accept it, he knew that was true, and he's been in this place for over a month now, every day drinking the blood of countless demonic creatures, so why can't he do it yet? The worm attacks him once again, and he says there's no chance then. He warns he'll play by Karam's rules for a while now, which she's now happy about, saying it's time to go crazy. Activating the 9th assassination technique, the manifestation of the demonic blade. Numerous cuts appear around the worm while Cheyenne's face is black. It agonizes, and our hero says he'll cut it into pieces. Under the moonlight, he activates the ability, 8 fluttering petals, cutting through the worm with numerous slashes from top to bottom. The worm's mouth explodes, and our boy is demonic. Meanwhile, one of the knights touches the blood of a hellhound and says it hasn't been long since it died. It's Yulkin and Wallace examining the area and say it seems to be the work of the demonic tribe. However, looking at the body, the father says those cuts seem somewhat familiar. Maybe it's déjà vu? Yulkin appears from behind a rock and says he has to see something. Wallace asks what it is when he raises the torch. They see the death worm cut in half, which scares Wallace. He says he can't believe that organization is behind this. The manifestation of the demonic blade hands over his body to Karen, who can now use her maximum power. But if he gets distracted, his mind will also be completely consumed. The next day, he wakes up saying he's crazy for using that power just to kill a simple demonic beast. He gets out of bed saying he was lucky he drank so much blood. Otherwise, his body would have been destroyed. Something Karen says she understands. He looks like a 10-year-old boy, but doesn't speak or act like one. Not to mention it's the first time he's used her, but he seems too familiar. He even knew all the geography of the valley and fought as if he mastered the mist technique for over 30 years. Kieran remembers he said he died once, and now she's sure. He's a regressor, isn't he? Cyan says he had explained that very well already, and she just hadn't understood. The poor thing is baffled. She screams at him, saying how is she supposed to understand such a serious matter when he speaks so simply. Cyan says explaining is kind of boring. She says by watching the way he fights, it couldn't have been easy to defeat him. With the demonic blade, he must have lost to the bearer of the Drandark, which means he either lost a duel or was betrayed. Remembering the expression he made towards the holy sword, she's sure he was betrayed. She says if he's back and preparing for revenge, he better remember one thing. If she finds him lazy or weak for a second, she'll devour him on the spot. Shen punches her and tells her to shut up because he's the master. The poor thing falls to the ground all bruised, while he smiles, thinking she really has the same personality as before. He then leaves the tent and looking to the side, he realizes everything is chaotic. Amelia calls for him and he asks if something happened. Scared, she says today they found the body of a demonic beast at the entrance to the valley. Shen hesitates, afraid they found the body of the deathworm. Amelia warns it's been a long time since they found such a high-level beast near the borders. Shen asks if there's anything else to say, and she gets scared. He asks again, did anyone say anything about me, any rumors? Suddenly, a knight appears behind, calling his name. It's Yulkin, who says the Duke wants to talk. Shen knows he's in trouble because yesterday when he was hunting, his father's group suddenly appeared. He had to abandon the Hellhound's bodies without being able to clean anything. All he didn't want was to attract attention before entering the academy, and so he presents himself in his father's tent. Sure, his father already knows everything. His father greets him while Shan hesitates about what he'll say. Wallace tells him to sit, and Shan frowns, wondering how he'll get out of this now. His father says he'll be direct and asks what he was doing last night. Sweating, Cheyenne lies, saying he went to bed early. Wallace seems to believe it for a second, but finds it very strange since the cut on the wolf was very similar to his blade. Is he jumping to conclusions by thinking that? Shannon asks if something is wrong, while Wallace finds it unbelievable that a young boy has done something like that. Shannon calls his father again, who asks if he heard about what happened last night, and he warns that they still need to investigate, but it seems to be something from the Mist organization. Hesitant, Shen asks, Mist. His father explains that it's an organization that has existed since ancient times, and they don't know its goal. But they have massacred countless nobles under the pretext of purification. Only that suddenly they disappeared. The last time they were seen was 300 years ago, but the same mist was present at the Deathworm, and that residue of power is only left by those who venerate the god of the mist. In his speculation, whoever killed the worm belongs to the mist. Cheyenne is impressed that he managed to track down an organization that disappeared 300 years ago with just that. Wallace says he doesn't know why they disappeared, but he tells him to be cautious and he will report it to the Empire. Our protagonist is relieved. It seems he will be able to escape suspicion. While his father thinks it doesn't make sense to connect such a young boy to all this, and he tells him that the discussion is over. And then he asks if he'd heard about the visit coming today. Cheyenne says he heard it was someone from the royalty. His father approaches, saying yes, and then he wants to ask him for a little favor. Sweating, Cheyenne is curious about this favor. A knight sounds a signal announcing the arrival of your majesty. Wallace and everyone on the battlefield bow and welcome the Emperor. The Emperor, who looks like a pale vampire, says hi to Wallace. He approaches him and says they are old friends, no need to be formal. Then he asks if the boy next to him is his son. Cheyenne introduces himself and says he's the youngest of the Vert family. The Emperor tells Wallace it's amazing to see that his son is on the front line. Really, his kids are extraordinary. The favor the father asked Cheyenne for was to introduce himself as his son, because in his past life he always stayed hidden and nobody even knew he existed. The Emperor then says it was the perfect time for him to introduce himself as well. A shoe descends from the carriage and she introduces herself as Erin Severus, the 5th princess of the Empire. Cheyenne remembers that she was known as the Unlucky Princess. One of the favors his father asked for was to escort the girl. He was confused because he wasn't very strong and wanted to know why his father asked for that. His father explained that it was just for him to keep her company since they would be entering the same academy and are the same age. Cheyenne remembers that in his past life he saw her at the academy while changing classes a few times. Wallace explained that it's always good to know someone from the royal family, and even though she won't be staying here for long, it's a good opportunity. Our protagonist thought he wasn't very interested, but he understood his father's intentions. He wanted him to have a relationship with her like his father has with the Emperor. However, Cheyenne says that his father chose the wrong person since that girl wouldn't serve his purpose. He sighs, saying he can't reveal the reason since only he knows the future. As inconvenient as it may be, for now he will have to follow these requests. As they walked with the troops, Eren asked why the lake was red. Cyan explained that it was the blood lake and there was no special reason for that color. The injured creatures jump into it to recover mana, and because of that, it has that color. Eren asks if it's red, then why are there a lot of monster remains, and Cyan says that's basically it. She then asks what's at the end of it. Cyan says there's a demon kingdom there, and she wants to know if there's a demon king there. Our boy warns that if the lake continues, she will find the king in flesh and bone. He's teasing her for asking such a silly question. Suddenly, they see a flash of light. A yellow smoke cuts through the sky, and Eren asks what that is. Cyan says a golden light means the entry of demonic creatures. She gets scared, asking if they've already arrived, while Wallace orders everyone to protect the Majesty and that they are going to the third outpost. The Emperor says he's disappointed, and Wallace asks what he means by that. The Pale One then draws his sword and says he's not here just for a visit, it's because he was already bored and missing the battle. Wallace lowers his head, saying he understands, and the Emperor tells his group that they will assist the eradication team in getting rid of the creatures. Wallace calls Shan to go too, who responds immediately. Eren is confused and asks if he's really going to fight against the creatures. He says yes, he's here in the background, but he always fights on the front line. She says she wants to go with him too. He questions what she's doing, while she says they're the same age, so there's no problem. But Cyan warns that the battlefield is not a playground. But she's insistent, saying it doesn't matter, she wants to go. He then calls Yelkin, who appears behind her and says he'll take her to the safest area possible. She turns around and Yelkin says, "Come with me, princess." Yelling at Cyan, she says he's insolent and for treating a princess of the Empire like that. Approaching, he warns that her dilly-dallying here will cause a lot of people to die on the front line. Will she take responsibility for that? She starts crying. After all, she's just a child. He then turns away and tells her to leave soon and stop being a spoiled brat. The three remain silent. In the battlefield, the soldiers are being absorbed by what seems like demonic slugs. Wallace raises his sword and tells them to return to formation. He points in the direction and says they should protect the Majesty and kill all those creatures. With a war cry, the soldiers enter the battle. Dio and Severos had two wives, one named Anna, who had already died, and another known as Cassandra, who was the current ruler of the Empire. The first wife bore two, and the second two more. But the fifth princess was born from a peasant woman, so everyone looked down on her. Still, she did not submit to anyone. As a descendant of the imperial family, she fulfilled all her obligations and studied more than anyone else. However, many were against her. With false accusations, they expelled her from the imperial palace and she was taken to an isolated place, thus receiving the title of Unlucky Princess. Karam asks if that's what he heard from his father in his past life. Cyan says when it comes to politics and reign, things are like that, while the electric slugs are being cut on the battlefield. Watching from afar the explosions, he recognizes that the Emperor is really amazing. He plants the sword in the ground and activates a sacred ray, easily defeating all the slugs around him. Cyan heard that this guy's magic reaches 8 stars. If he hadn't become Emperor, he would be the president of the Magic Council. Obviously, these medium creatures are nothing to him. A while later, Wallace and the Emperor are drinking together, talking about the old times. The Emperor talks about the current state of the Empire. In recent years, many nobles have been murdered and tension is rising. Wallace says this probably has something to do with it. The Emperor reveals that all the murdered nobles were considered corrupt officials, and a black mist is being found in all the crimes. Does he know anything about it? Wallace says that the followers of the Black Mist seem to have restarted their activities, since he also found something near the base. The Emperor says that could be the case, but they will have to investigate a little more. He even wanted to thank these guys for getting rid of these trash, but this is increasing the tension in the Empire too much. And there's something that particularly caught his attention. One of the nobles said that the 5th princess was involved in these incidents. Wallace asked, are people trying to connect her to this? The Emperor says he knows it doesn't make sense to blame a child, and asks Wallace to take care of his daughter if he dies. Wallace makes the oath of this promise, and the Emperor thanks him. That night, it was raining in the tents, and Emily was asking if he really did that. Cyan just ignored it, saying he was leaving, but Emily wanted to know if he really said those things to the princess. This way, he'll never be able to get married, he'll live a lonely life. Cyan told her to forget about it, he was going out to train, and she asked if he was really going in this rain. He told her not to worry and go to sleep, only Eren was clearly already there. Emily got a scare and asked who she was. She lowered her hood and asked if he was going somewhere. But if he's not busy, she wanted to talk about something. Seeing the princess, Emily's eyes even sparkled. Eren asked how long they had been there, and Cyan said it had been over a month. However, he wants to know her reason for being there. She hesitated without saying anything, and both asked Emily to leave them alone, who was already smiling mischievously, and she left saying they should enjoy the tent. Cyan knows he's 40 and not at all interested in her. Eren apologizes for what happened that morning. Awkwardly, Cyan says he also acted wrong, and she laughs, saying she would have done the same. She says she knows he is recognized by those around him, unlike her. Cheyenne didn't imagine she had that kind of personality. She says she knows he goes to school and wants to be his friend. However, Cheyenne interrupts her, apologizes, and says unfortunately he can't help her. If she's here to get closer to him, it's better for her to leave. She lowers her head, saying she only said that so they could get closer, but he's very cruel. Does he think she's just a princess by title? Cheyenne says nothing. Crying, she says she understands now. From his perspective, he can't gain anything by getting close to her and apologizes for wasting his time. Maybe she made a mistake thinking they could have a conversation, but he's completely different from Lord Eshel. Hearing that name gives Cheyenne a fright. He turns and grabs her arm, but she tells him to let go and asks why he's acting like that. Cheyenne asks her how she knows about his older brother. She says she met him when she visited the academy last year, and he told her to continue being that strong princess. Knowing his brother's nature very well, he knows it doesn't make sense for him to be giving advice. This means his manipulation has already begun at this moment. Cheyenne then says he'll give her some advice, but suddenly the tent starts shaking. Emily enters suddenly and tells them to run, but a pillar is almost crushing them already. The explosion happens and Emily is thrown from the tent. From afar, everyone sees a giant ogre and recognizes it as the young master's tent. Emily is desperate, crying for the two, while the ogre raises its club. The emperor asks what he means by that, and at night informs that the tent where Princess Erin has been attacked by a high-level creature. He then orders to bring all the troops from the battlefront. While wanting to know who she encountered in such a dangerous place, the giant ogre continues to destroy the entire back part of the base, and hidden there, Cheyenne can't believe there's an ogre in that part, a type of creature that only appears in the depths of the valley. He's wondering if maybe it's his fault when Emily calls for him. She's crying, saying she thought he was dead. Remembering the moment of impact, he managed to grab Erin and dodge the blow. Obviously, someone who subdued the Demon King's army wouldn't die to an ogre. Erin asks if the knights will be okay, and Emily reassures her that everything is fine, and they are very strong. But she cries, saying if she weren't there, this wouldn't have happened. It's all her fault. The knights say it's okay, their duty is to protect them. Smiling, one of them says she can trust that they will give their lives. However, Cheyenne warns him to run, and an ogre's hand is coming from behind. The poor guy is crushed and coughs up blood. Soon he's lifted by the giant ogre who is on the backs of the two. Cheyenne tells the princess to stay on his back, and the ogre seems to smell something. He recognizes it as he thought, and these monsters are there because of him. He's going to tell Emily to grab the princess and run, but before he finishes, she already grabbed her and ran off. The poor guy thinks the girl is fast even when it's time to run away. The ogre is coming to crush him, and he won't be able to use the demon blade so that no one suspects him. He's curious why these creatures are hunting him and what smell they're sensing. Karam says to him that he's been drinking the blood of many demon creatures, and now for the monsters, he has a terrible smell that attracts them. Cheyenne gets angry. The damn sage knew this and didn't tell him. She smiles, asking if he forgot that all she wants is his body. He grabs her and tightens his grip, turning her into the dagger who wants to know what he's doing. Chen realizes he won't have an option. He'll have to go all out against this beast. He throws himself, saying he doesn't care, and the ogre comes swinging. With one swift movement, he manages to tear the creature's arm off. Then he appears behind its neck and slices it as well. The boy's got swag, and with just 2 cuts, the beast is lying dead on the ground. He says now it's just a matter of killing the curious ones. In front of him, there's a bunch of creatures that make Karam say she's very excited for this festival. However, he gets a shock when a demonic dragon appears. The dragon roars to the skies, and Karam tells him not to be afraid. It's still just a little one. Cheyenne immediately activates the manifestation of the demon blade. Pointing the dagger, he says it needs to devour him. Meanwhile, the army is facing the ogres that invaded the base. The Emperor and Wallace have just killed the last one, and he asks if there's any trace of the princess. Wallace apologizes, saying she was in his son's tent, and the Emperor says he must be worried about his son. He replies that no, he doesn't have to worry about that creature. The important thing is the princess. The Emperor is shocked. Wow, this father is cruel. Suddenly, someone informs them that they found Princess Erin and she comes to speak with her father. He asks if she's hurt and she says no, but he needs to hurry to save him. Young Master Cheyenne is in danger because of her. He tells her to calm down and explain properly. Wallace asks Emily if she's Cheyenne's maid and she confirms. He then tells her to explain quickly what happened. Trembling, Emily explains that Cheyenne drew the attention of the creatures so the princess could escape. Wallace doesn't say anything, and one of the knights says he remembers the location. If they have the command, they can go there to rescue him. The Emperor yells at Wallace, wanting to know why he hasn't ordered them to go already, but Wallace says they won't go. The Emperor and Erin are shocked, asking what he's talking about. Wallace says the recovery of His Highness is the priority. If this place falls, the entire demonic beasts will invade the Empire. They first need to rebuild the base because that's how they'll prevent further losses. Emily then asks what they'll do with the young master. Wallace says the boy has already fulfilled his obligation by evacuating the princess, and that's how things work in the Vert house. The Emperor and Erin observe him saying that, while she thinks again it's all her fault. Suddenly, they hear a roar in the sky. and when Eren looks up, the dragon is passing by. However, she's incredulous when she sees our boy holding onto its tail and being carried away. In this world, dragons are the closest creature to the gods, besides being considered the most evolved living existence. Normally, it's an honor to meet such a noble creature, so why is it flying so close to these people? Eren screams for him, and the Emperor asks Wallace what his son is doing there. Wallace is silent, and the Emperor keeps asking why he's not doing anything. While up there, Cyan doesn't know what he's doing. He just wanted to drink a bit of blood, but now things have gotten complicated. As soon as the dragon appeared, he challenged it. He saw a bunch of weak monsters attack him and sent them flying to the front. He used the Furious Mist ability and cut through the entire battlefield. He approached the dragon and realized it really wasn't an adult yet. But the dragon prepared an attack and the boy got scared. The explosion happened and a laser cut through the battlefield. He managed to dodge, and by the dragon's head, he told it it's just a baby. So how does it have the courage to spit on him when they meet? He sent a slash that hit the dragon right in the eye. He was floating midair, and the dragon took advantage to attack him head-on. When he was about to be pierced, he smirked and activated the mist blade, using the 8 fluttering peels to cut the dragon from various directions. The beast fell and exploded the entire ground, and he felt that it really was impossible to kill a dragon. His shoulders were already done. But now that on the ground, it's time for the final blow. The dragon flaps its wings to create distance, and Cyan knows it's going to use the laser again. However, when he looked, the dragon was fleeing in fear, flapping its wings. Cyan jumped towards it, shouting, "You won't escape, you coward." And that's how he ended up hanging onto the beast. The problem is that when he glanced down, everyone could see him. So how will he explain this? Karen asks why he's acting like a statue, and he asks if she doesn't see everyone down there. Karen was angry, saying that she'll have to use her now that she's invoked her. But Cyan says that if he does anything demonic, he'll be stopped. She shouts, "So what will you do, kid?" He says he's thinking and tells her to shut up. Down below, Wallace begins to conjure a light magic. Cyan recognizes instantly that it's an 8-star attack. He can't believe his father would attack his own son like this. And that's exactly what he does as he raises his sword to the heavens. Cyan is desperate, wondering what kind of father he has. But the dragon descends toward the swords and starts dodging everything. He says it's good work by the dragon, congratulating his friend and telling him not to take it. The problem is another one appears behind him. Coming almost in his face, he already knows he can't dodge this one. It hits his leg where he was clinging, and Cyan is thrown. As he falls, he's sad, thinking he lost his lunchbox. While Karen is telling him to protect himself, he falls headfirst. Our guy says he can't use any mist technique. She comes at him, telling him to stop being cautious or he'll die like this. He tells her to shut up, he's thinking. In the end, he really won't die, and she can't believe he's going to do this. Until he has an idea. Down below is the Red River. He says he has no choice but there. Someone from afar observes the dragon fleeing and says it's rare to see such a sight. The guy behind him says it's just a kid who must have gotten lost from the group. The silver-haired guy points in a direction and asks if there are demons there. But the friend responds that there, in fact, is the human region. He looks at the horizon and gets curious, saying that dragons shouldn't be defeated by humans. Staying silent for a second, a guy with glasses asks if anything happened. He points, saying he feels a strange energy coming from that direction, almost familiar. The friend responds that they can go check it out. However, he's forbidden from annihilating absolutely everything out of boredom. He spreads his wings and says it's okay, he won't cause any trouble, and he flies off saying he'll be right back. Meanwhile, Cyan is emerging from the blood lake. He throws himself onto the rock, cursing up to the 10th generation, and he asks Karen if she's alive. Karen, all slimy, tells him not to talk to her. She's contemplating how to kill him. He says he'll give her a little wash when they get back, and she says okay then. But she tells him to wake up to reality, they're in the demon realm. Cyan tells her not to worry, it's very rare to find a high-level demon in this place. Someone behind him says he knew he would find something interesting. Cyan is startled. This is a voice I'll never forget. The demon behind him asks if he's a human, and Cyan knows he's the demon king Valkyrian. He remembers that in the past, this guy said the same thing, that Cyan was as if evil had gathered in one person. Valkyrian asks why he's not answering. Is he not human by any chance? In an instant, he's on his back, asking if he really wants to fight. Cyan is startled and turns, but Valkyrian easily dodges. But he managed to cut a tiny strand of hair. Leaving him impressed, he says that indeed races have endless possibilities. Karen asks him who he is, and the protagonist replies that he's the Demon King. She says if he's the Demon King, he has no chance of winning. He knows it's impossible. The best option would be to escape from there. However, his hand is trembling and he wonders if he can do that. But he's surprised when Valkyrian tells him to relax. He thinks he came here to fight a kid, for God's sake, and lies on the ground saying, "Do you really think I'm going to hit a child?" Cyan is all confused there, wondering why this guy is lying down. Valkyrian says he will ask one more time if he's a human. Cyan says yes, and Valkyrian wants to know how he ended up there. Our protagonist explains that he was carried by the sea, and the guy says it seems to be his first time in the realm, right? However, he senses strange energy and asks Cyan what he is. He says he's just a normal human. Valkyrian says he says that, but it seems like he knows who he is. Our guy says it doesn't make sense. It's the first time they've met. Valkyrian stretches his arms, saying it might be because it's the first time he's seen a human too. He then asks why he came here while wondering why this guy is so calm. Valkyrian says he felt a strange energy while he was walking around. He says that as the Demon King, he needs to keep an eye on the lands he rules. Valkyrian then gets up and tells Cyan to repeat what he said. Cyan says, "You're the Demon King who keeps an eye on the lands he rules." He points to his face and says he's not surprised. Now he's sure he's been seen somewhere. What kind of kid reacts like this? Cyan knows that the invasion of the demon realm is about to begin, but this guy is completely different from what he knew. What happened to change his attitude so much? So he asks him as the Demon King what he wants to do. Valkyrian smiles, saying he's quite reckless to ask something like that to the Demon King. And then he says it's obvious, right? As long as his subordinates are alive and eating, there's nothing else he can do. But everything changes if someone wants to change that. In that case, he'll end them all. That's his simple obligation as the Demon King. For a moment, Cyan felt the same demonic aura from the guy who attacked the Empire the first time. Somehow, he has to prevent that from happening. He then asks Valkyrian if he wants to make a deal and asks what it is. Cyan says that in the future, something will happen to him, an incident that will put all his subordinates at risk. Valkyrian asks him to explain properly the nonsense he's talking about. He explains that he doesn't know exactly how it will happen, but it will be an incident that will become the catalyst to start the war against humanity. Valkyrian crosses his arms, asking if he really thinks he, the Demon King, would attack his land. And Cyan says that's why he wants to make a deal so that no matter what happens, at least he won't start a war. Valkyrian says he has no idea what he's talking about, but if he accepts it, what does he gain from it? The protagonist says that no matter what happens, he will help the Demon King. Approaching him, Valkyrian says he seems to know something. He's sweating, and Valkyrian asks him his name. After introducing himself, Valkyrian says he will keep that promise as the King of Demons. He flies off, saying it's good for him to keep his as well since this is a deal. And he smiles, saying it's now sealed. After contacting the Demon King, some knights found Cyan. Seeing him emerging from the Red Lake, they said it was a miracle he was still alive. And with that, he received the title of the one who survived the demonic dragon. He was then taken to the monastery on the front lines, a place used as a military hospital. Cyan asks someone to repeat what they said. Erin is hesitant to say anything. She holds back and shouts, asking if he wants to be hers. The poor guy is confused, not understanding what she means by that, but he says he's not interested. She obviously gets startled. She starts crying again, saying it was expected. She really is the fifth princess with no power at all. Cyan in bed is thinking she's really starting to annoy him. He knows Princess Erin is the weak link in the imperial family, and the way she's risking it, her end is obvious. The problem is he can't shake off the idea that his damn brother is behind her death. He then says she's right. Currently, she really can't offer any benefit to him. She has no possession, takes a hit. Besides, it's extremely risky to get involved with her politically, takes another hit. But he says he'll take care of her until she figures out what's necessary. She asks if he's really going to do this. Cyan says yes, it's a promise, so she doesn't need to worry. She gets up, saying she understood that when she manages to turn things around, he recognizes her power. She points at him, saying she doesn't know when, but she will make him recognize her power. He says he's very eager, while thinking she was depressed just a second ago. Before leaving, she says there's one more thing, and thanks him for surviving. Then she leaves, and he stays silent. In the depths of the camps in a forest nearby, a hooded guy looks around. He takes a square in his hand and smiles, saying that now it's almost done. A voice asks him, "Reynold Crimson, was that you?" He can't move his body as if he's being held by invisible chains. The person behind him says it's a small dimensional box, and considering the timeline, it was before it was commercialized. This box can hold anything as long as the person desires. From behind, Cyan says that's the masterpiece created by the Magic Council. He observed the guy for a whole year smuggling things from the Empire. He grabs the box, saying he'll take it now. Magical Knight of 7 Stars, Reynold Crimson, who asks who he is. Seeing him, he recognizes him as Cyan Vert. He throws the items from the box on the ground while Reynold wants to know how he found out about it. Cyan ignores him, saying he must have an informant to know where to be at the right time. Reynold keeps insisting he has no idea what he's talking about. But Cyan says he can't lie because the blood of those creatures is already being sold in the Empire. That's how the Lice sent him that Hellhound blood gift. The guy is sweating, wondering who informed this kid and what's happening. He has no idea how Cyan trapped him, but as long as he can move a bit. And then he extends his hand, using a fire magic to kill Cyan. He gets startled, and the explosion comes towards him. Seeing the smoke, Reynold says it's a good thing he took this seriously. You really can't underestimate the son of the Verts. Then he finally relaxes. But suddenly his hand is cut off. He screams in pain and can't understand what that mist in front of him is. Seeing Cyan, he can't believe he belongs to the mist. But he grabs him by the neck and throws him against the tree. Cyan gives him two options: either he admits and dies peacefully, or he doesn't admit and dies in agony. In the trading area in the western part of the field, people are organizing some boxes. They see there are two potion boxes and are excited. They're just curious about how much is in that big box. But upon opening it, they both get startled. It was just Reynolds' head. From the mountain, Karen asks if he's really going to let the other guys live. He says yes, that's enough as a warning. These guys always smuggled demon items into the Empire. The items then reached the Magic Council, a place where people did any kind of madness to understand magic. Cyan says what they're going to do with demon blood is unthinkable, so they need to be separated. Karen says in this new life he's only living for others, but he says he's only preventing other people from using demon blood. In the Empire, in a certain mansion, Eshel is receiving a letter, and he finds out that Cyan has just gone to the front line with his father. There's a succulent girl in bed. This bastard is a villain but knows how to enjoy life. She asks if this Cyan isn't the younger brother of another mother. Eshel says yes and says that Kid is trouble in several ways. So we'll have to go there and leave a like on that video. That way he helps Mamoru produce some juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out. You guys remember that the previous chapter ended with his brother saying he'd have to take a look at Cyan. Some suitcases are piled up, and Emily celebrates that they're finally out of the front line. She's sure the academy will be a much calmer place than the front line, while Shan knows it will be scary. The academy isn't quite the place Emily's dreaming of. In fact, it's a cruel place where lives are destroyed by political interests, a place dominated by envy and greed, where strangely enough studies aren't even a priority. But Emily's there dreaming, saying she'll find a Getchit instructor, and Cyan starts to realize she's going to follow him at the academy. Sometime later, he's back in the duchy, having fun. He hears a sound and looks to the side. It's Krantz, startling him. Everyone's asking what he's doing there. Cyan tries to say hi, but the boy has already run off. Karam asks who that idiot was. He says it's Krantz, but he doesn't care about him. Karam says his brother is the complete opposite, and he says it doesn't make sense because his opposite is someone else. The door opens and he's back at the mansion. Only this time, all the servants greet him. Cyan remembers that they didn't even look at him before, but now, their courtesy is insignificant, probably his father's doing. Indeed, hard work has changed a lot in the last year. He puts his hand on the doorknob, but when he's about to open the door, he feels some energy and says he recognizes who it is. To make him so angry, he opens it slowly. He's already sure that only that bastard can be behind that door. Eshel says it's been a long time since they've seen each other, while all Cyan can think is that he has to stay calm. Since he doesn't say anything, Eshel asks if he forgot about his brother by any chance. What Cyan's trying to do is stay calm, while Eshel says maybe he forgot since he last saw him when he went to the academy. But Shan's already got red eyes, realizing he won't be able to stay calm. Already preparing a dagger in hand, he's sure he'll kill him now, but Kiram holds his wrist and warns him that if he doesn't want to have his skull smashed, he'd better control himself. Besides, killing him now wouldn't be fun. With that, Cyan calms down and greets his older brother. Eshel then asks, "Do you remember me?" Shion says it's impossible to forget a brother's face. Eshel pets his head, saying he's very happy. He was worried his little brother wouldn't remember him. It's a relief. He even heard that his little brother's fencing has improved drastically, and soon he'll be helping House Vert, or even better, he'll be helping him on the battlefield. Cyan says it's true and he's very eager to help his brother in battles. Eshel stares at him and says he's very relieved to hear that, as the reason he came here was just to find him. Cyan knows Eshel is the kind of person who completely ignores those who are of no use to him. And now that he realizes his brother is only there out of interest in using him, he relaxes and says he also really wanted to see his brother. Meanwhile, Emily brings their suitcases there exhausted. She drops them in the hallway, saying this was too hard. She shouts to the door, asking how he dared to leave everything to Emily, when suddenly Eshel appears in front of her. He smiles at her, saying he heard they are very close, and he wants her to keep working hard for Cyan. They leave while both thank her. Then she shouts at Cyan, saying she almost died of fright because he didn't warn her that Eshel was here. Cyan ignores her and asks her to leave for a while, and she wants to know why. Coldly, he looks at her and says it won't happen again. She is startled by his expression. Cyan goes to the bathroom and starts vomiting into the toilet. He's dizzy and asks Karam why she stopped him, who replies he should be thanking her. He tells her it was the perfect chance. If he were defeated, she would take over the body. Karam says he doesn't understand how much more hatred he feels, the better for her. He smiles, saying she really is like that. Meanwhile, a guy approaches Eshel's door and asks to come in. Eshel tells him to enter, and the guy informs him that he confirmed the location of the second young lady. Eshel asks where, and the guy confirms she's residing on the northern continent in the land of the elves there in Pruina. Eshel smiles, saying it's incredible how she manages to even reconcile with a race she hates among foreigners. That's a testament to the affinity she has. Then he asks to be notified if she shows any sign of returning to the Empire. The guy asks if there was any event that changed Eshel's mood, and Eshel asks why he thinks so. The The guy explains that he's radiating a much brighter aura, was meaning his brother really that amazing, and Eshel says incredible might express it that way, but right now he's pretty pissed off. The poor servant trembles, they're apologizing. Eshel paid close attention to San's look and interpreted it as someone who just saw his enemy. Did he see something wrong? He knows there's something strange about that kid, and he'll have to watch him closely. The butler says he understands and says he'll send someone to watch him. Eshel stands there staring out the window, just remembering Shan's look, wondering what he's hiding. In front of the mansion, carriages gather, while Emily shouts that she's very disappointed with the young master. He says it's her fault that she won't be able to go since she's not fit to guard, and she gets angry, saying he should have said that before. The carriage starts and Cyan says goodbye to her, telling her to chill out, while she tells him not to cry just because she's not there. Sig makes a silly face saying he understood, while Emily is shocked that he's really going like that. She starts screaming, saying that even if he's teased and beaten by everyone, he shouldn't be discouraged. From afar, she shouts for him to come back well, while he remembers that when he was 8 years old, he had a very high fever that made him faint. At that time, no one else took care of him, and it was Emily who carried him on her back. Even in the rain, she was the only one in the family who tried to find a doctor to help him. After a long time searching, an old man opened the door. If it weren't for her that day, he probably would have been found dead in one of the mansion's rooms. With a radiant smile, he warns her that if she keeps following him like this, she'll end up dead, and he can't take her to the academy because she's too precious to him. Now he's alone in the carriage, but impressed that they've placed 6 intermediate knights just to take the young master to the academy. Probably he'll see some blood before getting there. It was already late afternoon. Some knights looked at each other and decided to stop there. They informed Cyan, who asked how far they still were. They said they were near the central city of Saffron, and they would probably arrive there tomorrow morning. Cyan says he noticed and tells them to call him when they finish packing, but he already realizes that this is a lie because this forest is not close to Saffron. Camping in the middle of the afternoon in an isolated place and still lying about the location. All this makes it obvious that they are planning something. Cyan starts to leave the carriage when they say everything is ready. He leaves pretending to be clueless, saying the air there is very good. Already surrounded by the 6 knights, he wants to know whose order it was. In the background, one hesitates, sweats run down everyone's faces, and no one says anything. But one of them has a little smile. Cyan notices this and asks again whose order it was. The guy starts pulling out his sword, saying he doesn't need to know since he'll die soon. They approach, apologizing and saying it's not personal, but out of respect, they'll make it as painful as possible, so he just closes his eyes. The knight advances ready to cut, saying goodbye. The blade is about to hit Shin's neck when the guy's head flies off. It falls like a trash bag on the ground, and the guys look without believing. Cyan says he'll ask again whose order it was. Now everyone is scared, trembling, not knowing what to do. Shin asks why they're so frozen like that. Did they think it would be so easy? One of the knights thinks he can't even believe what his eyes see, and another one tries to attack them, but this time from behind. However, in an instant, Cyan is already on the other side and has made 2 cuts. The other one takes another hit on the shoulder and one on the arm. One of them tries to take advantage to run away, but obviously he's already agonizing. Shin only attacked Karim from behind. The guy who was standing and thinking is now crying, wondering if this is something an 11-year-old can do. He hasn't even moved yet, and everyone is already dead. Apparently, he didn't survive that dragon, luckily. Putting intermediate knights to do this mission was a failure. The guy crying falls to the ground. Shan approaches him once again and tells him to say who ordered it. The guy warns the moment everything was the Duchess Margaret's doing. Shen feels a bit awkward. He didn't even need to do anything against the guy. He already said everything. The poor guy is crying, trembling, right? Why did he speak? The following the carriage is moving and he's taking Shan calmly up there. And he explains to Cyan that it seems it was the young master Krantz's doing. He somehow asked his mother to prevent Shan from bothering him at the academy. And apparently this whole mission was the result of that request. Cyan remembers the fool who keeps running away and is behind this. He really will have to give him a little help at the academy. The guy then calls Shin a little embarrassed and asks what will happen to him now. Is he going to die too? Cyan says he doesn't seem very attached to his life. The guy says he knows they were trying to kill him, so it doesn't make sense that he wouldn't die. Cyan tells him to at least drive this carriage properly so he can have some use alive. The guy understands what he meant and thanks Cyan, who says they seem to have arrived right in the central city of Saffron. A vase attacked on the ground. Margaret is asking how they found the 6 dead. The butler informs that this is the case and that the young master Xian arrived in the city of Saffron 10 days ago. Margaret angrily asks the butler said there wouldn't be any problem. So what happened? The butler apologizes, saying they underestimated the boy, and she says it's impossible for a 10-year-old kid to have killed so many people. The butler says he probably had help from someone they didn't know. But it's alright, they just have to send an assassin to infiltrate the academy. She says enough. And if he finds out it was her doing and he mistreats Krantz because of it, already remembering that Xian asked if her son needed to graduate. Biting her lip, she says enough. It's better not to do anything else before things get complicated. Also, no one can know about this incident, so it's best to eliminate all those affiliated with it. Eshel's spy listened to the whole conversation. It's been 10 days since Cyan left Saffron. Brian has been playing his role as a servant all this time, and he knows that news of his survival must have reached the mansion. However, at this rate, he'll probably reach the academy without any problems. He'll have to start wondering if he'll have to get rid of Brian, who suddenly opens the little window with a smile, saying they've arrived. Cyan says, "Alright, you got it." That city brings memories to him. It can't be said they were good memories, but this academy changed him a lot. He presents the coat of arms of House Vert at the reception. A bit excited, the girl says she'll register him. Yes, everything's fine. They'll receive his room too, and everything will be fine. Cyan notices that she acted somewhat strangely. Is there a problem? Then she hands him a letter with a golden key. He startles and asks if she gave him the right one. Ryan lets the suitcases fall to the ground and startles. When he wonders if this is the place he'll stay, the royal dormitory, the best there is. But Shane remembers that in his past life, this didn't happen to anyone. This means that someone's influence is there. He asks Brian if that was the last suitcase. Brian affirms, saying he brought everything. Cyan puts his hand on his coat, saying that now they're at the academy and he's finished bringing the suitcases. Brian's job is done. Brian's sweating, saying, "Hey, wait a minute, kid." With that, they throw a bag of coins into his hand. He startles and asks what it is. Cyan says it should be enough for him to start over wherever he's going. He advises him not to return to the mansion or he'll die. Brian stands still for a moment without saying anything. Suddenly, he kneels and says that he, Brian Kendrick, the official knight of the old, would like to serve young Master Shan until the end of his life. Shan asks if he really is a knight. Brian says yes, but he's not very good, so he's more of an assistant, really. However, his father once said that for a not-so-talented knight, if he found someone he could trust, he shouldn't hesitate. Shan says it's nonsense. Brian is confused, asking what he means by that. Shan asks if he's not afraid of being betrayed later. Brian says that even if that happened, he wouldn't mind, and Shan warns him not to do anything like that. Leaving through the door, he says it's a hassle. It's an entrance ceremony, so they'll go straight to the exam. Brian, sweating a bit, says it's okay. The academy's dean and a girl talk about how there are many talented people this year. All the students are gathered in a room. In the middle of the room is a girl surrounded by an aura. It's a Rin Savelru. Magical grade of 2 stars, a physique grade B, and a light element of 52%. Another guy named Set Shaharkin is a 3-star mage with a physique grade A and an earth element of 71%. Scratching his beard, the old man says these kids were incredible, but this boy is invert. Magical grade 1 star and a physique grade S, darkness element 92%. The academy instructor, Tsirika Negriti, says that even the girl named Elise Vert, who is considered the daughter of God, had a water element of 88%. The old man says it's interesting how the person everyone thought had an untouchable talent was surpassed by his brother. He is the chancellor of the academy, Kundal Quizzle. However, Tsirika says his element is darkness, and the director says that due to the nature of darkness, some people really don't manifest it and waste any talent. But he tells her that Xian received a royal dormitory. She says she heard about it from the other instructors, and he says it was an order from the emperor. It seems Xian saved Princess Erin, who was with him on the front line of some demon beasts. The emperor seems to have even been thinking about marriage. The 5th princess, who was excluded from the throne line and the Verdi family, which has always been the cradle of talented warriors. The instructor asks what she thinks will happen, and Tsirika replies that if this happens, it will accelerate the revolts happening in the Empire and maybe more blood will be shed. The director says for now they can do nothing but observe whether this child will become a hero or a disaster. Walking down the hall, Cyan is thinking about the 92% because in his last life it was 80%. Was it because of the blood of the demon beasts he drank? Walking down the hall, he sees someone. It was Krantz, who startles, saying Xian looks odd. The chubby one behind him asks if this is a boy who's been treating him like a slave. The chubby one looks at him and asks if it's true that he doesn't even know who his mother is. And Cyan recognizes this boy as the son of a Marcus Popper Penneron. In his past life, he also stood by Krantz tormenting him. So it's very good to have found them together like this. The chubby one tells Krantz to get out of the way. That boy there needs to be crushed. Krantz is sweating, saying it's better not to do that. And he takes a punch and is thrown against the wall. While Krantz is already screaming in despair, Xian still asks Krantz if he doesn't want to talk about some things. Hesitantly, he says yes. The boy is sweating more than a marathon runner when Xian puts his hand on his shoulder. He warns that he doesn't mind him planning these things, but if he finds out one more thing, he won't be able to graduate with all 4 limbs. With that, Krantz falls to the ground desolate and Xian leaves, saying this academy is going to be a lot of fun. In one of the rooms, Tsirika is thinking about Xian, saying she'll have to pay a lot of attention to this boy. She walks towards and touches a book, wondering why it's not there. Behind her, Xian asks if she's looking for this as she startles. But she turns all friendly. asking how the student is there. It's a restricted area. However, she thinks it's strange because she couldn't sense his presence. She approaches, asking if he's the boy called Cyan, isn't he? Can he return this book? It's research material. He says yes, of course, he'll give it back to her. But it seems like he hands her a sheet when she thanks him. He immediately senses some aura coming. One of the books in the place starts flying, and he asks if she wasn't looking for that. Instructor Surica, or actually, the current leader of the Mist Assassins. Obviously, she wants to know how he found out. Cyan remembers that in his past life, he thought of her as an ordinary instructor. She would ask how his life was in the academy, and he wouldn't say anything. He attended counseling sessions with her. When she talked about his growth potential, he thought he didn't care about that, because to him it seemed like a joke. But one day, Surica said she was interested in him. It was interesting to see someone with an 84% familiarity with darkness, but Cyan replied that it's an element that doesn't always materialize. But Surica told him that it's just that humanity still doesn't understand darkness properly. Unlike others, she believes his growth potential is infinite. That stirred Cyan's emotions, and Surica said she wished him all the best for his future. While he thought maybe she could guide him, or at least that's what he thought at the time since he was just deceived. The girl behind those glasses is very different from the academy instructor, since she's the leader of the Mist Assassins Association, hiding within the academy where most of the continent's nobles gather. Suddenly she says, "All right." She wants to hear the details in her laboratory, so let's go. Cyan startles, she seems calmer than he expected. Looking at the laboratory, he says it looks the same as always. He's about to have coffee when he says apparently she put poison, while he thinks it makes sense now why she was so calm. She says he doesn't need to worry, it's just enough to melt a few organs. But Cyan is confident. After eating so many demonias with Emily's cooking, he can digest anything. So he asks for something stronger next time, and she says it's time for them to talk for real, and he wants to know how he knows her identity. Furthermore, he knows the exact location of the commands that are passed in the books nobody picks up at the academy. Does he want to reveal it to her before she finds out he's also part of the Mist? And Cyan says he doesn't need to prove anything else to her. She stares at him, saying he's feeling too high and mighty just because he's familiar with the element. Cyan tells her that on the way here, everyone was saying he should bring more than just a knight, because a lot of nobles have been dying recently. When does she start the purification process? She gives a little smile, saying the purification process. She activates her aura, saying she has no idea what he's talking about. Cyan says he'll make it clearer then he's talking about the murders. Surica says he'll regret these threats, and he asks if she's threatening a student. Suddenly, she kicks the table and throws everything at him. Karam seems scared, asking if that's how she's going to act, and punches the table. She's already behind him with a dagger in her hand while he says he's already approved his identity. She goes for it, saying that as the leader of the association, she can't not know one of the Mists. She tries to make a cut, but Cyan dodges. She goes for it again, saying he won't escape. Cyan pulls Karam, thinking he won't have anything to do, and defends her attack. He says that since she doesn't believe him, he'll have to show her. And he starts attacking her, causing her to defend and retreat. Sweating, she asks if this blade is what she's thinking. The weapon that can only be wielded by those who have been chosen. Kiram's demonic blade. Cyan asks if she finally recognizes him, especially since the Mist must be working right now to find her. Surica wants to know how he knows this. Cyan tells her that the hair she's been searching for is right here in front of her, in a certain street in ruin. In an isolated house, someone uses magic to open a padlock. It was Surica with Cyan, who says he doesn't seem very impressed with the hideout of the Mist being right here. That one is the way to the altar he wants so badly, so he can go alone. Cyan walks through the tunnels. That's a subspace created by the powers of the god of the Mist, and because of that, it's much longer than it seems. But he remembers perfectly the direction he has to follow, and each of the traps present. Suddenly, some guys attack him from behind, and he says this reception ceremony is very excessive. He defends against some attacks and retreats backwards. The guys throw a lot of mud at him that he has to defend against. But one of them almost dies and has to defend himself too. Cyan is impressed that the guy managed to dodge that in such a short moment. And the guy is thinking it's amazing and activates his secret technique, which makes several clones of him attack from all directions. But Cyan also has his technique. The guys seem to recognize and don't understand how a kid can do that. Cyan uses the wave of murderous intent. It's a technique exclusive to those who have been assassins for a long time. It allows you to instill deep fear in everyone around you. The guys can't even breathe and all fall unconscious. Cyan knows they won't get up for a while, but it's impressive that there's still one standing. Is he some kind of executive? He then activates another ability, and the guy goes for it. He manages to defend against the attack, but the guy nullified his ability. The mask is thrown to the ground, and she says she can't hold back anymore, Cyan Vert. He stands there confused, not understanding. It's Lady Surica again, saying she wants him to show his true power. He uses another technique, the savage attack, and sends her flying backward. She says he seems interesting. How can he use two assassination abilities so easily? She wanted to see his potential, what the boy is already running. Cyan knows she has something called a desire for combat. When she's consumed by that desire, she'll keep fighting until one of them dies. He who has experienced this has to run. But she's excited, telling him to come back soon because that's what he wants too. She attacks him again, and he manages to defend himself. She says this is a subspace in which no one will notice anything. He doesn't need to hold back. Cyan realizes he won't be able to get out of there, and he really will have to use all the techniques. There's a risk she'll end up dead, but there's no other way. But suddenly he feels something and collapses to the ground with a stone. Karam says she knew things would end up like this and tells him to rest for a bit. Surika asks who she is, and Karam appears, saying she didn't want to get involved. But she already knows who she is, doesn't she? Surika bows, saying she recognizes the demonic blade Karam. Karam is the one who's angry, asking how she dares to attack her master. Surika says all this was just a process to confirm his identity. Karam says she should have just contacted God instead of doing all this. But if she wanted to do it this way, now she'll consider it a challenge. Surika says it's better to worry about the heir first, right? Karam is startled when she sees the boy lying there unconscious, bloodied. Surika explains that the way Karam is materializing is very bad because she's draining all of Shan's life energy. Karam grabs him by the collar angrily, asking how he can be so weak after drinking so much blood. Surika then says that, however, she, as a leader of the Mist, would never refuse a battle. If she truly wants to be an opponent, she cannot refuse. Karam is surprised, saying that girl is very strange. Suddenly, Shan asks her why she materialized. Karam says he doesn't need to worry, she'll just crush that reckless girl. Now it's messed up because Surika is also excited, saying it will be an honor for her. Karam tells her not to beg later, and she replies that she's looking forward to going that far. Suddenly, a voice in the hall says that's enough, and they recognize it as Lord Air's voice. A portal begins to open, and everyone becomes apprehensive. The voice tells her to send the heir to the altar now, and she just agrees. Cyan is excited, saying they'll finally meet. The god of darkness, Heir. Some think that the god of the mist is an evil person, for whom murder is as common as eating. Someone who justifies their actions under the pretense of doing it for the world. However, he says that the death of those people was a good thing, as by paying with their lives, they became righteous people. Most people thought this was insane logic, and that this god was an idiot. Someone who had an interest in protecting those without power. Shan passes through the portal and finds himself face to face with a staircase. From the throne, the god asks if he knows who he is. Shan says it's obvious he's Heir, the god of the black mist. The god asks if he is Cyan Vert and wants to know what right he has to consider himself as Heir. Shan questions him, asking if he can't feel that the power of the mist is already present in him. The god says there are paths to becoming an Heir. The first is by delivering the mist stone to the person, and the other is for the mist stone itself to find the Heir. Since he doesn't know Shan, it must be the second case. He knows that the stone that was on the altar disappeared a year ago. The strange thing is that not only did he awaken the Quarren, but he also seems to be using it very well, and his eye zone seems suitable for his age. With this, the god concludes that he belongs to a timeline he doesn't know. Cyan is somewhat curious and says he thought the god knew everything. The god says that if he was looking for an omnipotent being, he came to the wrong place. He was long disqualified from the status of god. Shan already kind of knew that. However, the god is now wondering why it's strangely too easy for him. Shan asks what he means by that, and the god explains he was sitting here quietly. Now the Heir has appeared. Why did Cyan do all his work for him? Moreover, he brought a rather unpleasant item. To think he would be dissatisfied with the demonic blade and try to take the power of the sacred spear for himself. Cyan smiles, saying he has no interest in that. If this thing never sees the light of day, it will remain nothing but a piece of trash. The god begins to rise, saying he has some very strange habits. However, procedures have to be taken, and as the rules say, raising his arm, he says that now he will be the absolute creator, the Heir who will succeed his power, and he asks if Shin wants that. He remembers that in his past life at this moment, he replied that he would live for his older brother. Obviously, it was foolishness, but at that time, they didn't seem to care much about his answer. When he was gone, the place fell apart, and he wondered if they didn't want something from him. And the god said there are things more important than a foolish conviction. Now Cyan thinks that maybe he already knew everything that would happen. He approaches, saying he has no more interest or belief. The god is somewhat confused, and Cyan says he will use his power in the most selfish way he can, all for himself. The god says that right and wrong are determined by oneself, and wants to know if he won't regret this decision. It's good for him to answer carefully, or he'll kill him now. Cyan says he doesn't care about the results his actions will bring. He won't listen to orders and commands from anyone, as following his own path is the only thing he wants. The god says he seems to have something in mind and asks what it is, but Cyan says he won't tell. The god says all he has to do is purify the names given to him, then the rest doesn't matter. However, he appears behind Karam and says it's time to have a little chat with his daughter. He starts pulling her cheeks, saying she's changed a lot. Does she like her master so much? He He's trying to give her kisses, saying he's very happy with his daughter's growth while she's telling him to get out. The god is trying to give her all the love of the flesh while she's calling for help from Cyan, who's pretending not to see anything. Then he approaches to give her a kiss and a pentagram appears. Magic starts to be conjured, and she wants to know what's happening. Suddenly, she takes on physical form. Looking at her hands, she doesn't understand what's happening. Why does she feel like she really has a body now? And Cyan realizes he hasn't consumed any of his mana. Kieran wants to know what the hell he did. He says he didn't do anything. He just gave her a little bit of his power. She's shaking his face there while our protagonist is thinking father and son are indeed identical. The next day in the dorms, Brian went to ask Cyan what that was. He said it was nothing special. Don't think too much about it. Brian said it is, young master. He doesn't think they can ignore this situation, both staring at each other, they're sparking. Karam is questioning why Sarika came to visit the young master so early. This way, everyone will be talking about a relationship between instructor and student. Sarika says it's nothing special, she just came to deliver a book to a very studious boy. Angry, Karam says that as a leader, she should behave better. While Sarika wants to know why she's so eager to get involved in what others are doing. The protag is there like that, doesn't know what to do, better not get involved. He leaves the room saying he's going for a walk. The two are killing each other and Brian is there sweating, not knowing what to do. The city seems to be bustling while Cyan observes everything from a pillar. Finally, he manages to relax a bit, but suddenly he smells blood. Someone is thrown to the ground. He gets up there spitting blood all twisted. Some guys there say they should try to do that thing there. It's very terrible, so it's going to be fun. The blonde guy makes a mana ball in his hand. Showing it to her, he tells her to take a look. He pulls her mouth and says he brought something delicious. When a friend brings something delicious, she has to eat it. Or horribly, he closes her mouth desperately. But suddenly someone tells him to stop. One of the students was about to hit a boy with an orb, when Aaron told him not to do that and that it was shameful for a noble to act like that. The blonde guy turned around and warned that he was the son of Duke Rumil, Barrett Rumil, and who she was. She introduced herself as the princess of the Empire, Erin Savelru. The guy smiled, saying it's her, and wondering who she was. The famous fifth company of the Empire, Miss Erin. He comes face to face, saying it's an honor to meet her. Erin says she's not here to meet him, and that he better explain this situation. He's in front of her. The guy says it's okay. The best thing is to ask the kid. Looks at him and says he speaks up. He's kind of scared. Grabs him by the collar and asks if he's okay. Obviously, he says he's very fine, nothing happened. Erin says it doesn't make sense for him to clearly hide and not be okay with his appearance. And the kid looks to the side, saying he's fine. She should leave now, and they were just kidding. Barrett starts laughing, asking if she heard that, isn't it? Apparently, he should be insulted by her. Erin says whatever, she's taking this kid with her. But the guy grabs her wrists and says she's not understanding. She wants to know what he's doing. The blonde guy says the kid already told her to leave. And Erin starts threatening him, saying he's holding the arm of an Empire princess. The blonde guy laughs that it doesn't matter since she's the useless fifth princess. But Shan was nearby and heard everything. And suddenly the guy took an aster from him and turned into a b-boy. Erin blushes when she sees Xian, who's more curious about Reshmus being that kid in front of him. Two people exchange blows in the Empire of Garum Fort Klein. Xian fought against someone. She was the most powerful swordswoman in his time, Reshmus Klein. Oh my heavens, I thought it was a boy. This here is the reverse surprise. You think it's a buddy or a big buddy? She originally belonged to the UCF Empire, but for some reason she joined Gurren's reign after graduating from the academy, and even changed her nationality. San defends himself from the thrown attack. He's surprised when she jumps cutting. He disappears and appears behind her. He gives her a hit in the warrior's spine that falls crushed to the ground. I thought they were training, but in fact he killed her as an order from the Empire. The order was to kill her in a covert way, but she found him and they had a sort of official duel. For him, there was no particular reason. He just saw her as an amazing person, as she reached the peak of swordsmanship without any backing, and didn't want to kill such a talented person without giving her a chance to fight. Friends are calling for Barrett while Reshmus is there somewhat shocked. Barrett starts to get up, asking why there are so many idiots caring about other people's business. He recognizes the kid as Cyan Vert and says he heard rumors that he was on the front lines. Is he trying to get involved in their games? Cyan thinks those games are not fun at all. Injecting mana orbs into people's bodies can cause their mana to collapse and the person to never use magic again. Cyan asks if that's the game where you keep putting mana orbs in your mouth. He starts making one of darkness and says he'll join too. But Barrett starts sweating when Cyan already created a Genki Dama above him, asking what he's doing. Why isn't his mouth open yet? Oh, there he goes, trying to put the big ball in the blondie's mouth. Back in the dorms, Reshmus is beaten on the bed. Erin says they've taken care of the bruises and she just needs to rest for a while, and she thanks them, saying she can't repay them. For some reason, Erin feels proud, saying that their dear Xian dealt with everything so she doesn't need to worry. Cyan thinks about all of Reshmus' bruises and finds it incredible that she hasn't fainted after so many fractures. She really deserves the title of the strongest swordsman. Suddenly, Reshmus asks if he knows her. Embarrassed, she says she noticed he's been looking at her a lot. Cyan says he thought she was someone he knew but forget it, and apologizes for making her uncomfortable. Arin is just watching what he says and observing the other one who's now saying it's okay then, a little embarrassed. Suddenly, she asks Reshmus where she's staying and if those guys come to do harm to her again. She says she's in the common dorms, and Arin asks if she has any nobility. She says no, she only got in because of a special admission and instructor Veltane. He had promised to help her when she was in the academy, but as soon as she arrived, he was expelled. Shan then understands she lost the person who was supporting her, and says what she's been going through is minimal. Maybe soon she'll be kicked out of there. Arin gets a little sad about this situation, and Cyan tells Arin to accept her as an attendant, and this way she can even learn swordsmanship from the girl. Arin is shocked, asking why are you calling the boy a girl? Dude, can't you see it's a boy? Shan says that person is a girl. Arin's world collapses at that moment. From the back, Reshmus apologizes, saying she didn't mean to deceive anyone. It's just that since she was young, she prefers to wear short hair so people sometimes get confused. In the demon's work, it was the boy who was a girl. Now here it's the girl who's still a boy but inverted. Arin apologizes, crying, saying she couldn't understand and doesn't even know how Cyan noticed. Reshmus says it's okay. She apologizes. Arin then asks what she thinks of Shan's suggestion, since it sounds good to her. If she joins, she won't suffer from others anymore. That way, she can focus on her studies and still live a comfortable life. Reshmus asks what she could do for Arin. Arin says she's been feeling very lonely lately and she needs someone around. Reshmus then thanks her and says from now on she'll be her attendant and will never bring shame. Arin turns around saying she should thank Cyan. Where's Cyan? The boy's already gone. He knows from now on she can handle the rest. Now he knows why Reshmus left the UCF Empire, and she probably wouldn't have lost mana control if it weren't for that bad beret. Now the person who was already the most powerful swordsman on the continent will have her mana intact. Probably will be someone difficult even for him to defeat. But that doesn't matter, because his attention is now on something else. That thing Sirica personally delivered to him this morning. Her order. My first chance to help the association with a like on this video, guys. And you guys remember that the last chapter ended with our boy saying he was more interested in what he had received. With the card in hand, he thinks that this is going to be quite difficult for a first challenge. However, he remembers that when she handed it over, she said she believed in his potential. The problem is, if the missions are already starting off this hard, he doesn't even want to think about what he'll have to do in a few days. Suddenly, though, he hears something nearby and an explosion out of nowhere. Shin wonders if the monster has invaded the academy. However, what appears is a 3-meter-tall musclehead asking if he is Cyan Vert. A bit embarrassed, our guy just questions if the man knows who he is, and he answers yes. The man claims to have the level of a magic 1, but physical level of S, and he knows very well that Cyan Vert is the youngest in the Vert house. Man, this guy's name is Seth Shaharkin, and he's 11 years old. I'm just like Cyan, not understanding how an 11-year-old kid has so much muscle and is so tall. Seth starts flexing his biceps, talking about what he's heard about Shan's exploits. From killing creatures to surviving an encounter with a dragon. He also heard that the boy received an evaluation of a rank S physique, something even he himself couldn't achieve. And that's why he wants to challenge him to a fight. That's when Cyan seems to recognize this guy. All because of the mark on his chest. It represented Spain, which was the Cyan Empire, and this guy apparently is his prince. This country is located in a desert to the east. And in his past life, Spain's entire army revolved around one single person. A prince who, on his own, made it impossible for any army to conquer Spain. That was a nation that carried the pride of never being conquered. However, the prince suddenly declined. He ignored his health so much and focused so much on training that he ended up dying from a random cold. Wow, what an epic story. What Cyan never imagined was encountering the prince of this city here. He's certain this didn't happen in his past life, and now it's going to be trouble. However, he decides to respond by asking if the guy wants to fight now. Seth says yes, claiming it's the only way to determine who is the strongest man. The boy should know he won't accept a no for an answer. However, that's exactly what Cyan replies, and Seth asks why. The protagonist explains that fights like this must be approved by the academy. First, they'd have to go to the office and send in a formal request. Seth immediately wants to know where this office is so they can go there now. As soon as Cyan tells him, the guy runs off, saying he'll be back soon. Our boy thinks the guy is all muscle. Really, after all, the office is in the opposite direction, but he doesn't need to mention that. Not to mention there's no such thing as a training request, but he'll let the guy figure that out on his own. Oh, poor thing, completely fooled. The scene then shifts to the city. Hooded man tells Lord Zickerman that the product is ready. The man tells him not to stand there and to notify all the clients immediately. Zickerman Albus was one of the 3 richest men on the continent. Publicly, he's known as a philanthropist, generous with his donations. But in reality, he's trash who forces relationships between species. This is because he wants to create new mixed races to sell in the black market. Shannon's already watching while hearing the man say that today the best product he ever imagined will be born. Now Shan's target is confirmed, and it looks like this will be easier than he thought. However, as he picks up Karam, she says she's sensing a complex energy. He's confused, and she says the target seems to be hiding something. Zickerman then stops in front of the cell and says he finally has some peace and quiet. He tells his money factory to sleep well, but that's when he notices a strange black mist around him. Someone behind him strikes. The first headless one falls to the ground, and the knight asks who's there. Desperate, Zickerman yells for someone to kill whoever it is. But Shan rushes toward the man and lands a blow that makes him drop his sword. Another strike behind the knee, and Karam is already at his neck. Before the man can say anything, he's already taken down. This one doesn't hesitate. Zickerman starts screaming, asking where the rest of the knights are. Shin simply says he'll find out soon enough when he joins them. Although he had hired a lot of people, they were useless. Dragging himself on the floor, Zickerman asks if he wants money. But Shen just cuts his hand and says he already has enough of that. The fool falls to the ground, and Cyan calls him by his name. He says he will be punished for the inhumane things he's done and for his participation in the slave market. That alone is reason enough for him to die. But since he's feeling generous, he'll give him a minute to repent for it all and free himself from the pain. Zickerman, however, crying, says it doesn't matter since he'll be killed anyway. He tries to explain that all they're doing is earning a living. The real culprits are the people interested in buying the goods. Shin simply says his minute has passed and he didn't even repent. He activates the 8 stanzas of the Black Mist and starts a sequence of attacks on the back. Now that the main part was complete, he could take a look around. As he approaches Masera, he asks Karam if this is the place, and she says yes. She was sensing 2 combined energies. He then cuts the barrier and seems startled. On the ground, there's a girl holding an egg in her hands, but she already looks dead. He says there's nothing special, just a girl. However, Karam tells him to pay attention. In her arms, she was holding a dragon egg. Now we're back home. Yelkin asks where he got that, and our boy just plays it off, saying he found it somewhere. Obviously, the guy doesn't believe him and asks what kind of nonsense is this about finding it. But Shan is more worried about whether that guy was really going to sell something as dangerous as this, and who was the buyer and where was it supposed to be delivered. Yelkin then asks what they're going to do if this thing suddenly hatches and turns out to be extremely dangerous. But Shan responds not to worry, as a dragon is a massive energy that needs certain attributes. The egg would only hatch if they continually injected it with the correct attribute of magic. But just as he says this, they hear a crack. Both turn to see that the egg is starting to hatch. With this, the fool realizes he really screwed up. A light starts emanating, and finally the egg cracks. Out of it comes a little girl, right? What did you think was going to hatch? An insane dragon? No, of course, it had to be a lowly. Yelkin is freaking out, wondering what they're going to do. But Shan is more impressed that it's a mixed race. And the fact that she's half human makes this a much bigger problem than he imagined. But the little dragon girl is smiling at him, even giving him a hug. Since he was present at her birth, he starts imagining that maybe she thinks of him as her dad. Suddenly, someone nearby laughs. It's Karam, who says it's ironic that an 11-year-old boy is now a father. But Shan says it's all her fault. We then see the moment he picked up the egg and asked if they should really take it. Karam said yes, because it could fall into the wrong hands. Our boy was afraid of it hatching, but she assured him that a dragon egg wouldn't hatch without the right energy or a mother. Back in the present, she says this just proves that anything can happen. Our boy asks what that nonsense was about the egg not being able to hatch without a mother, and she replies that's why she said anything can happen. But this business about a mixed race was truly curious. The very existence of that creature was dangerous. The protagonist knows this. And the worst part is this is going to be a massive headache. It was already a problem for a half-human, half-beast hybrid. Now half-dragon made everything much harder. The world they lived in was far too dangerous for something like this to exist. If anyone at the academy found out about her existence, the chances of her being eliminated to prevent a threat were very high. Moreover, dragons were extremely proud of their race and pure blood. If they discovered the existence of this child, it would certainly come to eliminate her. This makes him wonder why he would take on such a huge risk. If she was destined to live such a hard life, maybe it would be better to end it. Salen smiles and says she agrees that maybe this is the best solution for the child. He places his hand on her neck, and Salen says that's the right path, as it would be a life of misery anyway. And Shannon keeps repeating to himself that it would be better to end her life right there. But she starts to open her eyes, and as soon as he touches her neck, she calls him Dada. Sham was staring at her as if he was going to kill her. But when he hesitates for a second, she snuggles up and says it's love. The poor guy realizes he's screwed as he notices how warm she is. He picks her up by her little arms and lifts her, saying that apparently now they'll have to figure out a solution for this. He tells Karam they're going to take care of her, but Karam isn't too thrilled about this. The scene then shifts back to the Verti household castle. Kranz's mother is there, wondering what she's going to do. She couldn't let that damn Cyan roam free and be a danger to her son. That's when Eshel shows up and calls for his mother. He says that if something is bothering her, she just has to tell him. But she leaves, saying she's fine and nothing is troubling her. However, as soon as she closes the door, he tells Kellen to report the information. The man says they found the bodies of some knights dead in the forest, and the only survivor went to the capital with Cyan. He's certain that the person who ordered the attack was Duchess Margaret. Moreover, they lost contact with an agent at the academy who had been passing information about Cyan. Ashel says that apparently the man hasn't learned anything from his brother. The fool is trembling, realizing the man is disappointed. He's certain Ashel isn't the kind of person to keep those who disappoint him around. Afraid of being eliminated, he yells, saying he'll check it out himself. He swears he'll never let him down again. Ashel places a hand on the man and says it's impressive how passionate Kellen is about his work. And with that, he leaves, saying he's sure his brother is hiding something. Back at the academy, Sirika is rushing in. Our boy is there with Karam, bottle-feeding the dragon, asking what she's doing there. Sirika wants to know why there's a baby in the dormitory. The protagonist says it's a pretty long story. She interrupts him and says the explanation can wait because they have important matters to resolve. She says it looks like our boy has been busy causing trouble. She then shows him that a duel between him and Seth has been approved, and she asks why he's not trying to keep a low profile and is doing something like this. Was the boy trying to attract as much attention as possible? Shan is confused that the guy actually submitted a formal document to create this duel. Karam asks what the problem is. It's just two 11-year-old kids playing around. However, our boy knows that Seth isn't just any 11-year-old and asks when the fight will take place. That's when he's told it's in 2 hours. And there he is thinking that this was way too soon. Seth welcomes him, saying he's been waiting for this moment. However, our boy doesn't seem too excited. Seth says he wanted a free-for-all fight, but they only allow fencing and magic, and he asks if Xian, by any chance, will be using magic. As soon as our boy says no, Seth says he truly doesn't disappoint. He jumps in for a slash, saying he wants to see what Xian can do with the sword. The protagonist, however, seems calm. He's just thinking about how fast this guy is considering his size. But attacks that rely purely on physical strength are easy to avoid. With a simple sword movement, Seth's attack is deflected to the ground. Shan starts to move, saying that an opponent like this is defeated with sophistication and precision. However, the prince says he won't give him any chances. As swords clash and Seth feels the pressure in his arm. Shen was able to use a good amount of his strength to counterattack. And how is he blocking such a big sword with just a rapier? Suddenly, Seth is behind him and goes for a hit to the back of his neck. But out of nowhere, Cyan sheathes his sword and grabs the fool by the legs. The poor guy is confused, wondering if this bastard has eyes on the back of his head. But when he's about to hit the ground, he manages to place his hand down and barely saves himself. He uses the momentum to almost land a kick on Xian. Seth is impressed that the guy found a counterattack in that situation. The audience is wide-eyed, wondering if these two are even human. Seth is just smiling. He starts laughing, saying that he really was defeated with the sword. But now he's going to put everything on the line and do whatever it takes to win. Shan says he's looking forward to it, though he's thinking this is going to be exhausting. However, Seth insists, saying he hopes Xian will also come at him with everything he's got. His aura begins to expand, shattering the ground beneath him. He calls out Shin's name and says now it's begun. A bearded man in the audience says they finally started using magic. Students competing in both fencing and magic showed they had a good spirit. Sirika, standing next to him, says it's clear Xian was the winner in fencing. They know Seth has an A-class physique, while Cyan is S-class. The fencing match was determined from the start. However, physical aptitude is just a basic element when it comes to high-level magic. And as far as he knows, Seth has level 3 magic, a highest among freshmen. He wants to see how Xian will respond to this. Sirika, however, is fuming, wondering why this bastard is drawing so much attention. Suddenly, a hand starts emerging from the ground. It's Seth's death grip. He prepares a punch and Xian realizes it's time to use magic. He easily dodges the first attack. However, he seems to trip over something in Seth's movement, who warns him he won't escape. A sequence of attacks continues coming his way, but he easily avoids them. Seth then activates Desert Fang. A mound of sand erupts from the ground and suddenly it seems Xian is surrounded. He knows Seth has at least 3-star magic. The poor guy took a Gara Classic, but as soon as the smoke cleared, there he was, perfectly fine. One of the things he realized is that Seth would easily use level 4 magic. The problem is that defeating him would put him in a complicated situation. Seth then asks how long Cyan plans to keep dodging attacks. Obviously, Xian wonders if Seth expected him to just take a hit to the face. Angry, Seth says Xian is just a student and a warrior should never run from their destiny. Confused, Xian says that, as far as he knows, both of them are students. At that, the idiot starts going crazy and activates a sandstorm. The old man is watching closely while Sirika looks scared, wondering why he's using level 4 magic. Seth sends an attack towards Xian, saying he wants to see if he can dodge this one. Our boy just stands there and says, "Fine, I'll take this one." Meanwhile, someone grabs the bottle. It's Yulkin, saying it's a good thing he has experience raising kids. He had a tough time taking care of all his younger siblings, but he never imagined that experience would save him now. He then calls for the princess and says it's time to eat. But suddenly, he's startled. The little girl seems to have grown up quite a bit already. Back in the sand during Seth's attack, it was enclosed in a blue globe. However, the globe was starting to crack. Oh, I get it. There was protection so that no one else would get hurt during the battle, but now it's breaking. Oscar, the one responsible for the barrier, can't understand how a student is doing all this. Sirica tells the Chancellor that it's better to cancel the match. However, he says he wants to wait because he feels something is about to happen. Shan then activates a secret art of the Void Sphere. And of course, Sirica didn't want him to use something like that. Suddenly, Seth's sandstorm seems to be absorbed. The professor laughs, saying the boy is quite impressive. Meanwhile, Sirica wants to kill him for letting everyone see this. Seth's attack keeps getting absorbed and the sphere continues to grow. Until, after a while, Cyan closes his hand. The fool is left confused, not understanding what just happened. And the people in the audience wonder where all that power disappeared to. No one has any idea what that black energy sphere in the middle of the arena was. Shan asks Seth if he still wants to continue. But the poor guy is exhausted. He falls to his knees, saying he can't believe he lost. He lost in fencing and lost in magic. At that moment, he was pure depression. Poor Cyan starts feeling bad for crushing the guy's spirit. But then Seth punches the ground and says it's fine. He was getting tired of beating weaklings anyway. Now his motivation to keep training is restored. He then extends his hand and says he's looking forward to training with him again. And next time, Cyan will have to accept the challenge. Shannon, of course, says no. He's not interested at all. The scene shifts to Cyan talking about how dragons develop faster than other creatures. But overnight, it seems like the child had turned 6 years old. The girl is already welcoming Daddy. Shan knows that at this rate, she'll soon be his age. He tries to explain that he just took his eyes off her for a second, and suddenly this happened. Man, he knows it's going to be tough to raise her there. Someone mentions that there will come a time when he won't be able to hide her anymore. It's Sirica, who says she can help hide the magic sword. But a dragon like this is something completely different, especially since he keeps drawing attention to himself like today. Karam is lying on the couch, peacefully sleeping, not wanting to deal with anything. They're just looking at the little dragon girl, saying she's growing terribly fast. How did she get this big while he was out fighting? Sirica then says she knew he was up to something, but bringing a creature like that home is completely different. Our boy tells her not to worry because Yulkin said he'd take care of the girl. Besides, the place already has a barrier, so she and Karam wouldn't be detected. That's when Sirica hands him a letter and says this will only be possible if he stops causing trouble. Our boy looks at it and says it's a pretty bad reward for winning that match. But she just leaves the room, telling him to stop getting into trouble. It would be terrible if he ended up angering a certain someone. Yulkin then asks what it was, and our boy says it's a warning. They want to expel them for bad conduct. The little dragon girl says that can't happen to Daddy, otherwise everyone will end up begging on the streets. Shan is confused, wondering when this brat learned to say things like that. He pets her and says they don't need to worry for now. Yulkin says it would be dangerous if he were forced to return home. Shan replies that they don't need to worry because it was just a small competition. After all, he noticed that the letter came directly from the Chancellor and not the administration. That means the guy wants to talk to him. I don't know if this was in the past, but I believe it was. The Chancellor asks if he really wants to join the Order of Light. Shan agrees, and the man says he doesn't think it suits him. Seeing the boy's face, he says he's sure Shan knows this. So he decides to give him some advice and tells him to keep it in his heart. He's certain that Shan would find no benefit in joining the Order of Light. His fate would be suffer him or something even worse. However, one thing is for sure, joining that order wouldn't be worth it, because that's what life is like for a puppet. That was the conversation he had with the old man in his past life when he was called there once, which makes him wonder what curse the old man will throw at him this time. Yulkin then comments that the child might deserve to have a name. They can't keep calling her just Little One. Shan just responds with Nana. Yulkin was about to tell him to think a bit more, but the girl says it's perfect. She likes the name Nana because it's the same backward and forward. And besides, now she's Nana Vert. She's spinning around Cyan, who wonders how she knows his last name. The scene then shifts to the Chancellor's office. He's thoughtful and impatient because of Cyan Vert. He already knew the boy had great potential, but he saw him absorb a rank 4 magic attack all by himself. Someone with that much power is something to be feared. But the strangest part is that Cyan didn't even seem to be trying, which makes him wonder what this boy is truly capable of. Shan knows that Candle was the teacher of Emperor Dione and Princess Diana. He's one of the few 9-star mages on this continent, and after Princess Diana's death, he decided to dedicate himself to cultivating new talents at the Royal Academy. But what confuses Cyan is that he always saw this man as a pacifist. So why in his past life did he suddenly get involved in the Empire's throne affairs? He stops for a second and is sure of it. That guy was as treacherous as ever. Knocking on the wall, he notices it has a barrier. Not just a barrier, but a 9-star one, even though he knew Sam was coming. It seemed the man wanted to test him, and Shan was ready to pass that test. Candle was smiling, curious to see how the boy would deal with the barrier. All right, fine, Shan mutters as he crashes through the window. He lands in front of him and calls out to the Chancellor, introducing himself as Cyan Vert, a first-year student. The old man notices that the boy did the obvious, but he has to admit defeat. He then asks if Shan received the warning about the competition. Shan says yes, he got the Chancellor's notice, but he became certain of some things as soon as he saw the barrier. That so-called warning was just an excuse to test him. Candle says that's correct and that his method was quite common, but undeniably effective. With that aside, he says he won't resign the warning unless Shan convinces him. Shan then asks if he can pose a question. He inquires whether the old man values the Empire's prosperity or his family's honor more. Candle remains silent. He says it's a bold question, but neither is Shan's concern. Shan then asks if, hypothetically, Emperor Dione and the third princess showed ambition for the throne, would Candle stand idly by and not support either side? The old man replies that such boldness is not only audacity but also recklessness. Meanwhile, Shan recalls that in his past life, this man told him he'd become a puppet. But at this moment, Candle was no different. Shan remembers that in his past life, the Chancellor played an important role in helping Prince Luenel ascend to the throne, a prince known for his violent nature and for killing all his siblings. The day the Chancellor questioned those deaths, he was imprisoned for treason. Now, Candle slams his hand on the table and says it doesn't make sense. He asks Shin if he truly believes that the peace built over the past 100 years could crumble so easily. He thought the boy was talented, but apparently he's just an ignorant child. Shan ignores the insult and says that both Candle's daughter and the second princess have already died from illness. Furthermore, the third and fourth princes are forces that cannot be ignored. And Empress Cassandra's faction is beginning to hunger for power. They would stop at nothing to seize control of the Empire. After all, the peace in this land is barely holding together. And when it all collapses, it will also mean the end of the Academy. Candle is stunned that an 11-year-old knows the entire current political landscape. It then asks what Shan's intention was in saying all this. Shan says he's there to propose a deal that will help Candle, peace for his family and peace for the Academy. And all he asks in return is for Candle to remove the warning. The old man laughs, making Shan feel like a fool. Candle summons a magic circle and asks what power Shan plans to use to resolve this. He signals downward with his finger, saying Shan will be crushed along with his arrogance. Chains of judgment then appear and pull Shan upward. Shan immediately realizes the Chancellor wants to test him again. Candle says that while Shan may be powerful, escaping such a skill won't be easy. He remarks that the boy is getting too full of himself. However, Shan asks for permission to show what he's capable of. At that moment, the old man is startled. Shan activates an adaptation of the Void Sphere. The chains seem to be getting swallowed up. The old man is in disbelief that a level 1 skill is consuming his magic. The energy keeps being absorbed and the sphere continues to grow. Meanwhile, the old man wonders about the limits of this boy's potential. Finally, the attack dissipates along with the chains. Shan asks if he's proven enough. Candle immediately agrees to remove the warning but says he doubts that's all Cyan wants. Our boy says it is because all he wants is for there to be no problems at the Academy. The old man asks if he's sure and Cyan says yes. The truth is, Shan really doesn't want to see the Academy collapse again. Meanwhile, in the city at sunset, someone mentions they bought a lot of sweets, but that's what happens when there's a child at home. It's Yulkin, who's happy just imagining Mana eating all of it. Suddenly, he feels a chill. The place is eerily quiet and he assumes it's just his imagination. He slowly walks, looking around, until he senses a presence in the shadows and demands it show itself. Someone steps out of the darkness and Yulkin is so startled he drops the sweets. Man, I thought you'd react, but the poor guy just disappeared. Shan had promised the Chancellor that he'd attend all classes after leaving the meeting. But at this moment, he's tired and bored. It's tedious to study things he learned over 30 years ago. Since he doesn't have any missions to do, he considers going to train. But then someone appears behind him, asking where he thinks he's going. It's Erin, who says the lesson isn't over yet. Shan lies, saying he's just going to the bathroom. But she calls him a liar because she knows that's not the direction to the bathroom. Meanwhile, a guy named Regimus is standing behind her, calling her Lady Erin. Our boy then asks if she's allowing him to address her by her personal name. She tells him to stop changing the subject but says yes, but only in private. However, she wants to know why Cyan is still so formal with her. Our boy responds that since she's royalty and he's just a simple citizen of the Empire, he can't be too familiar with her. Someone then approaches in the middle of their discussion. He calls out to Erin, and suddenly she looks startled. Shin glances to the side and sees a guy on the stairs, saying it's been a long time since they've seen each other. It's Brother Fabian and Brother Nerobian. Apparently someone really likes Bien. Erin greets them, and they ask why she's surrounded by commoners or if those people are her servants. Shan knows these guys from House Nefello always belittle the princess. Then they ask if he's the so-called boy Cyan Vert. Our boy simply says it's a pleasure to meet them and introduces himself as the young Mist of House Verdi. The guys reply that he doesn't need to introduce himself because they saw the duel, and it was incredible. Surely he'd be invited to the next social gathering. They say they should talk more and shouldn't remain strangers. Shan notices that Erin is being completely ignored. The guys place their hands on his shoulder and tell him this is an opportunity few people get. Erin just stands there silent, until Nerobian puts his hand on her shoulder and says that obviously someone like her shouldn't get any ideas. The so-called princess should know her place. As the guys leave, Regimus asks if they really are princes. Erin confirms they are and remarks, as the saying goes, blood is thicker than water. But Shan says he doesn't think that's what's happening in this situation. To them, it's clear she's worse than a stranger. Water or blood are insignificant when it comes to power. That's what she needs to understand. The fact that they act so coldly toward her shows that they have some fear or apprehension. He tells her not to be shaken by it, but the poor girl is already blushing. Our boy leaves while she stands there, blushing from his words of encouragement. Back at home, Nana is messing up the bed, but Shan finds it odd that neither Karam nor Yelkin is around. Karam then appears, asking if he doesn't see that the little girl is sleeping. Then she asks what he wants from her. Our boy tells her to find Yelkin. She looks confused and asks if he thinks she's some kind of dog to go hunting for him. But suddenly, she starts sniffing the air. She says she smells blood. In a nearby alley, Yelkin is thrown to the ground. The attackers laugh, and a blonde man says he should have responded as soon as they called him. Now things had gotten complicated. It's ironic that the boy only had one night and he was so bad at his job. The man then announces that it's time to cut Yelkin into pieces and deliver him as a gift to their master. He could thank his boss later. This was the price he would pay for messing with Barrett Rumil. However, from the ground, Yelkin simply says, "Alright." The guy is confused and asks what he means. Even while battered, Yelkin tells them to just get it over with. Barrett then tells everyone that apparently Yelkin has lost his mind. It's time to finish this by killing him. But suddenly, from above the alley, someone asks what they're doing. "Man, if it's who I think it is, I guess you're all headed to your next life." It's him and Shan with Karam in hand, saying that apparently this was Rumil's doing. From the ground, Yelkin sees it's our boy. And upon seeing the state of his friend, Cyan says, "Looks like they beat up my poor boy." Barrett, however, seems excited that Cyan showed up on his own. This was exactly what he had planned. Shan simply replies that he's looking forward to seeing what Barrett will do. He charges at the men, activating the 8th stance of the violent barrage. It's a tap to one guy's neck, a flick to another's forehead. Everyone in the alley starts getting thrown around. Barrett can't believe that all the men he hired couldn't beat this kid. What kind of monster is this, he wonders. He starts cursing Cyan Vert and says he'll kill him. But before he can use his spell, he takes a knee to the stomach and is thrown far away. The poor guy hits the wall and Cyan says Barrett hasn't changed one bit. He asks if tormenting the weak is really so fun for him. Barrett, however, says what he does in his free time is none of Shan's business. And he asks, "What are you going to do, kill me?" Shan remembers that in his past life, this guy, the eldest son of House Rumil, became the strongest figure in the kingdom of Garan. He was an infamous figure who beat his own servants to death and burned small animals just for entertainment. Until one day, his madness crossed the line. He mercilessly killed a classmate and claimed he was just practicing magic. This exposed him, and the Purge Squad gave Shan a mission to eliminate him. But that day, Shan would never forget what he saw upon arriving at that mansion. In the man's basement was a pile of servant corpses. Naturally, Cyan tortured him to give him a painful death. But even while suffering, the man kept smiling and telling Shan to just end it. That was because he was already bored with his own games. Now Cyan realizes that killing that guy in the past wasn't a punishment for a monster like him. After all, he had already done everything he wanted. It was an entirely inadequate price considering the lives he had affected. With this, Cyan grabs Barrett by the mouth and summons a mana orb. Barrett asks what he's doing, and warns that Shan won't get away with this because he's the future of the kingdom of Garan. But Shan just grabs Barrett by the throat and says he sure loves to talk a lot. He warns that Barrett's biggest mistake wasn't insulting him. He could say whatever he wanted behind his back, but what he should never have done was hurt one of Shan's servants. Barrett starts writhing in pain on the ground. A strange purple aura begins emanating from him, and someone is observing everything from above. Oh, it's Echel's informant, who says he urgently needs to report this. Surely this would interfere with his plans. But then Sirika places a knife to his neck and says she found the one tailing her boy. Our boy approaches Yelkin, who apologizes, saying he brought shame to his lord. Seeing him beaten up, Cyan thinks it's pitiful to see the poor guy in such a state. He then asks why Yelkin, as his servant, involved himself in a fight he knew he couldn't win. Was that his idea of loyalty? Shan says he understands what Yelkin wanted to achieve, but the best choice in this case was to flee. He didn't need Yelkin to risk his life in the name of loyalty, so he shouldn't do anything so reckless again. Poor Yelkin, broken and defeated, simply apologizes. Our boy then says the leader can show themselves. Suddenly, a group of Purge Squad members appears, asking if it was that obvious. Shan says it's obvious when so many people show up together. Then Sirika appears, saying she brought a big present. She throws Kellen to the ground, and Shan immediately recognizes him as the one who had been following him recently. She seems impressed that Shan already had information about him. He says he kind of already had an idea. She responds that, as always, he's highly capable. Not only is he far stronger than any other assassin of the Mist, but he's also able to negotiate directly with the Chancellor. In addition, he has the mental fortitude to wield the magic sword. He truly deserves the title of successor, but the problem is he keeps causing trouble. Shan just replies that he took note of all that, but he warns that he will always refuse to be just a victim. Whoever harms those close to him will be crushed. Sirika interprets this as him saying he'll protect those around him and says she understands. She then says she's leaving and trusts the successor's decisions. But before that, she reminds him not to forget to deal with that person. Kellen then asks what Sam plans to do with him and if he's going to kill him. But Shan says he's learned that death is too easy. Desperate, Kellen says that if Shan thinks he's going to talk, he can forget it. But Cyan replies that he already knows Kellen is the right-hand man of Eshel. The poor guy is left wondering how this brat already has that information. But Cyan remembers Kellen very well from his past life, always by his brother's side, and the envy he felt when they were close during the wars. However, considering everything, Kellen really is a problem. Perhaps the best option would be to kill him now. The problem is that doing so would send certain information to his brother, which means it's time to use this guy to execute his plan. Kellen, desperate, asks what Cyan is doing. Cyan activates a psychic clone creation. A cloud of mist begins to pour into Kellen's mouth and eyes. The scene then changes completely to a castle. A man rushes in and attacking Erin. She manages to parry and says he'll have to do better than that. But the man appears behind her and places a sword at her neck, announcing his victory. Erin tells him to stop calling her Your Highness and admits she really can't beat him. He apologizes to Your Highness, and she tells him to learn to just say, Erin. But then they hear a heavy strike nearby, and Erin says someone is training hard. It's Yelkin, taking a punch to the stomach, a kick to the back of the knee, and being thrown far away. Shen is impressed that, considering he's just a regular worker, Yelkin can take quite a beating. Moreover, he has good stamina, so maybe in the future, he could be useful. Shen asks if Yelkin is okay, and spitting blood, he says he's perfectly fine. Shen knows the training has to be tough because at any moment, he could be attacked like what happened with Barrett. Yelkin then comments on Kellen and asks if he won't cause any problems, to which Cyan says there's nothing to worry about because now Kellen is on their side. The scene then shifts back to the moment when Cyan absorbed that energy. Yelkin was right there watching everything as the body fell to the ground. Shan thought to himself that it was exhausting since he hadn't done that in a long time. The Shadow Psyche is a level 9 dark attribute. It creates a new shadow personality in the target, allowing him to control them. Even in his past life, he only used it once. He then asks Kellen to introduce himself. Kellen replies that he's Kellen Digos, a guardian of the Knight of Elias. He had received orders to come to this city and observe Lord Cyan. Cyan is pleased with how obedient Kellen is and asks who his master is. Kellen says he originally served Lord Eshel, but now he wishes to serve Lord Cyan. Our boy says that's fine. Kellen's first mission is to return to Eshel and report everything Cyan instructs. Kellen agrees and says he will obey the commands. Kellen looks motivated and Cyan finds it terrifying how well that spell worked. Erin then shows up and asks if he's training with the knight. Our boy humbly replies that yes, he is, but honestly he could have just said he's there to play cards. She then says she's been practicing fencing with Rezimus ever since what happened recently. Shane remembers what she's referring to. Everyone found out that Barrett Rumil was found beaten up in front of the infirmary. But the worst part wasn't that he couldn't talk about what happened. It was that he could no longer use magic. What Cyan finds strange is Rezimus' reaction. He thought Rezimus would be happy about what happened. Suddenly, Nana comes flying through the sky, yelling for our boy. Or rather, she's literally flying. Both of them look up and Cyan asks what's going on, considering he left Karam in charge. Of course the lazy one was sleeping, wasn't she? Erin grabs Nana, wanting to know where this crazy kid came from. Meanwhile, Nana keeps shouting that she found her dad. Erin is confused by this whole dad thing, but Nana is clearly pointing at Cyan. Now the girl is stunned, wanting to know since when and with whom this happened. While Cyan the fool has no idea how he's going to explain himself. Some time passes and he's already explained everything. Erin feels relieved to discover that she's not his biological daughter. Still, she didn't expect the boy to have such a soft side. On the other hand, Yelkin is worried because they'd be expelled from the academy if this was discovered. But Erin tells him not to worry. She would never tell anyone. Shan is impressed by her promise. Man, you should have made her promise before explaining everything, right? Erin looks up and reassures him, saying not to worry. After all, it's not like she has any other friends besides them. Way to ruin the positive vibe, Erin. Shan asks why she made the promise, and she says it's because she feels sorry for the girl. Someone who is neither dragon nor human wouldn't be accepted anywhere. She was lucky enough to find him. But with that said, Erin declares that she'll have to visit his dorm a few times. Not to see him, of course. She wants to visit Nana. Shan says he's fine with that, but it all has to be kept completely secret. The fool Erin lies awake, thinking this is a secret just between the two of them. Actually, it's a secret between 5 of them, but okay. With that, she leaves and Rezimus waves goodbye. But as Erin looks back, she feels something strange. She's all giddy, realizing she seems to have gotten closer to Cyan. Back at home, though, Cyan still gets scolded by Karam. She tells him to just spill everything to her, including that he has a magic sword. Cyan tells her to shut up, pointing out that all this happened because she was sleeping. Yelkin suggests they should take Nana out more often. Maybe she ran off because she's been cooped up for too long. Cyan says it might not be a bad idea. Then we see 2 people flying with wings. A white-haired man notices something strange and stops midair. The woman beside him asks what's wrong, addressing him as Lord Lucian. He replies that he smells weakness. He asks where they are, and she says they haven't reached Ruin yet, but are close. Lucian realizes they're near the Ruin Academy. He says they'll have to delay their return because he senses the presence of something that isn't meant to exist. Meanwhile, in an open area near Ruin, Yelkin is warning Nana not to wander too far because it's dangerous. Cyan thinks this was a good idea since she's enjoying herself and are far from ruin. Here, his secret is safe enough and she can get some fresh air. Karam teases him, saying he seems to be enjoying playing house, suggesting they make the princess the mother. But suddenly, they all feel a chill. Karam warns immediately that something is approaching. Lucian says, "That's abominable." Yolkin shouts for Nan to be careful, barely saving her from a laser. Cyan sees that the two are safe and tells everyone to stay behind him. The two descend from the sky, and they wonder what they're doing there. Dragons, superior beings, and two of them at that. Lucian then says he now knows where the stench is coming from. The existence of that thing is revolting. The red-haired dragon, Catalina, asks how such an abomination came to be. She questions if Cyan is the owner of this mixed race and how he also possesses a magic sword. Karam is furious at being treated like a mere object, but Catalina tells her to be quiet since she's just a human's toy now. Hermia, however, retorts, asking if Catalina is looking to die. As Hermia prepares to attack, Lucian stops her. He explains that he has no interest in this fight as they dislike fighting inferior creatures. However, they must take the mixed breed girl with them. A half-human, half-dragon existence would surely make for valuable studies. They say that if they hand her over, everyone's lives will be spared. But Cyan tells them all to shut up. Lucian can't believe the audacity of the boy. Cyan repeats, telling the winged crocodile to keep quiet. Obviously, Lucian loses his temper. He nearly fires a laser at Cyan, but Yolkin calls out to him, telling him not to worry and to stay behind him. However, it's undeniable that the technique Lucian used was terrifying. Lucian says that's why dealing with inferior creatures is so annoying. Cyan activates the 9th stance of the Black Mist, manifesting the magic sword. Every time I mess up pronouncing these massive spell names. But there he is, our boy, looking like a burnt matchstick, ready to face them. Both dragons recognize that as the power of the exiled. Lucian remarks that the day is full of surprises, but in the end, boy is nothing more than an inferior creature. But before he can finish the thought, Cyan is already at his side, leaving Lucian startled, not knowing when Cyan appeared. He takes a flurry of stabs and is thrown back. Lucian says the boy is a reckless human and charges at him with a slash. He extends his hand, activating a shockwave. A magic circle forms above Cyan, and he takes the attack head-on. But Cyan activates one of the smoke techniques, reappearing behind Lucian. He conjures another storm of blades, forcing Catalina to step in for defense. Lucian tells her not to interfere, saying this fight isn't hers. But she simply reassures him, saying he has nothing to worry about. There's no way she could lose. The flame barrier she's using has been refined for over 1,000 years, so it's impossible for a human who doesn't even live 100 years to break through. Until Cyan activates the 8 petals. Are we back at Manhwa? He delivers 8 slashes to the barrier, shattering it completely. Catalina is left wondering how that's possible. Before she can recover, Cyan delivers a clean slash through her. Did she disintegrate? Did she actually die? Man, is Cyan pissed off. Lucian, confused, asks what Cyan is. Someone with mere powers of the mist shouldn't be this strong. He demands an answer, but when Cyan doesn't reply, Lucian says that, in that case, he'll treat him as a serious opponent. Cyan notices that Lucian is activating the polymorph ability. From the magic circle, the dragon begins to emerge. The man is reverting from his human form to his natural one. Sharp eyes, massive wings, the beast is here. Lucian lets out a deafening roar in Cyan's face, but Cyan leaps towards him, saying he knows this is the moment when Lucian is most vulnerable. He's already above the dragon's wings, and Lucian wonders what he's thinking. Noticing Cyan's position, Lucian realizes the boy knows about the vulnerabilities of the polymorph ability. Cyan strikes directly in the middle of Lucian's forehead. Lucian calls him reckless, but is already thinking about escaping. But Cyan smirks and says it's too late. He activates the technique Giant Tree Root directly into Lucian's head. A wave of black energy spreads through the dragon's body. Lucian rises in the sky, and sometime later we see Yolkin calling out to Cyan. Yolkin looks horrified and covers Nana's eyes. What's this? Cyan has already cut up the dragon and is roasting its meat. He says dragon meat is precious, and Nana exclaims that she wants some. Meanwhile, Cyan's brother hears about Cyan working with a mysterious group. Kellen explains that the agents they sent were killed by this unknown force. Ekel asks if that's everything, and Kellen confirms it. Ekel finds it odd. When this guy left, he was filled with anxiety and fear. But now he seems calm and collected, like a completely different person. Ekel simply says he understands, but has one more question to ask. When Ekel stares at him, Kellen realizes Ekel has caught on to something. Suddenly, Kellen places his hand on his chest and says, "May the grace of Lumendel be with me." Ekel smiles and thanks him for the response. He tells Kellen not to worry too much, but advises him to be cautious. Kellen, however, knows there's no turning back now that Ekel is starting to suspect him. At the very least, he needs to ensure he doesn't become a problem for Cyan. As he leaves the room, Kellen runs into a maid. He remembers that she was the girl who took care of Cyan. He asks what she's doing there, and Ekel replies that he invited her. He asks if her name is Emily, and she confirms it. Then Ekel says he wanted to ask her for a little favor. Girl, you better run while you still can. Meanwhile, at the dragon's base, someone asks if it's true that Lucian and Catalina disappeared. Another confirms that their energy vanished, and now there's a gap in their ranks. but it's strange for the energy of an 8-star dragon to vanish like that. Judging by their empty stones, it's clear they were likely defeated. However, upon flying over the area, all they found were remnants of a battle. One of them asks how it's possible for someone to kill those two and leave no trace of magic. The green crystal says it's only possible if the killer has the dark attribute, but as far as he knows, there's only one person in Candle strong enough to kill those two. However, that person doesn't possess the dark attribute. This means there's someone powerful out there they know nothing about. The man says the only person at the Royal Academy with the dark attribute is a boy named Cyan Vert. Moreover, there are rumors that he encountered a dark dragon at the front lines and survived. If that's true, he might also be involved in the disappearance of the two dragons. The green crystal says this is a strange coincidence and advises keeping an eye on him. He instructs someone named Luna Rainraver to send his granddaughter. It's fascinating to see this conversation among the crystals and still have no idea who's who. Meanwhile, back at the royal dormitory, Erin, of course, wastes no time visiting our boy and even brings a cake. She says it's a gift for Nana, who's thrilled. But man, she didn't just bring a cake. She brought an entire cart full of presents. Sitting at the table, Cyan thinks that, at least for now, they're getting along well and things are calm. But if dragons can truly detect Nana, it's only a matter of time before they attack again. However, he won't allow anyone close to him to be harmed. In this life, he has decided to live for himself, and of course to take down Echel and all his plans. Suddenly, Erin looks over her shoulder and asks why he has such a big smile on his face, wondering what's making him so happy. He responds that he just had a great idea. The scene shifts to the garden of House Verde. Someone says it's the first time they've seen him since graduation. It's Prince Luvinol Sevelos, who comments on how great Echel looks. The fool replies that it's all thanks to his majesty. The prince then tells him to stop wasting time on the outskirts. He's heard that Ellie is moving across the continent. Echel smiles and says he's very concerned about what she's doing. But the prince asks if he isn't worried that she might be a threat to him. Echel, irritated, asks if the prince isn't lacking discretion. But Sevelos says there's no need for discretion between the two of them. He then asks if Shein isn't his brother, explaining that his father is interested in the boy and is even considering marrying him off to Erin. He doesn't understand why Echel would care about this, considering that girl is useless. Echel, however, tells him not to be so quick to judge. She might gain some influence and interest, becoming useful. The prince replies that he likes how productive their conversations always are. Their relationship is quite peculiar, huh? Might as well end with a kiss. The prince even offers Echel a glass of wine, but Echel notices that the prince's knight seems to be someone new he's never heard of. The prince explains that it's a gem he found while passing through the slums. Echel examines the man and remarks that even among gems, this one appears to be of the highest quality. The man introduces himself as Boris Lehelm and offers his services. Suddenly, 2 years have passed just like that. Shad mentions that he kept a low profile, and just as he felt he had adjusted to the academy, that's when Elise returned. In another part of the castle, someone knocks on a door. Elise had come to visit Candle, who remarks that it's been a long time since they last saw each other. He asks if she enjoyed her trip. She says yes, mentioning that she visited the city of Purwina. The Chancellor comments that it's a place where humans aren't very welcome. She explains that it took her an entire year just to start adjusting. However, she wanted to understand the harmony they always spoke about. He always said that wherever she went, prosperity would follow. That's why she's careful about where she belongs. Candle doesn't fully understand her point, but apparently he gets the gist as he says she seems to have reached some conclusion. She confirms this, stating that she wants to join the Order of Light. The Chancellor remarks that she seems intent on preserving the family name. She replies that it's a burden someone has to bear. She's concerned about her younger siblings, especially Cyan, whom she describes as extremely shy. The old man bursts into laughter, leaving her confused. He comments that the idea of Shan being shy is quite amusing. That's when the boy himself appears, saying it's very insensitive of their dear Chancellor. They look back and see our boy. I thought he might show up looking older, but nope, he just got taller. He looks like he's holding in a fart, but says he missed his sister. Walking outside, she remarks that he's changed a lot since the last time they saw each other. He's already as tall as her and will soon surpass her height. He jokes, saying she must have gotten shorter, but she tells him to stop making up lies. It was July 2, 1988, a date he would always remember, because it was the last time he saw Elise alive. What's going to happen, man? She mentions that the semester has ended and asks if he'll visit home. He replies that without her there's no one to welcome him. She seems confused and asks if that's why he hasn't gone back in 2 years. He knows the real reason is Echel's presence, and of course the Duchess, who wants to kill him at any moment. The worst part is that their father does nothing to stop it. Going home would basically be suicide. Stop lying, kid. You killed 2 dragons and are afraid of a Duchess? But okay, I believe the Echel part. Elise then asks if he gets along with Kranz. He replies that it's impossible. She asks why, and he says it's obvious, because of the way Kranz always treated him, always trying to take his life. Apparently, Elise had no idea about any of this. Yelkin steps forward and confirms the information. Shen explains that Yelkin is his guardian. Poor Elise just now realizes this, thinking he was just some random lunatic following them around because he was so weak. Sometime later, she finally understands what happened. She mentions that while all this was going on, she was in Pruina, completely unaware. Cyan tells her not to worry as the problem was created by the Duchess and Crans. They are the true villains. But Elise's expression changes. He asks her what's wrong and she suddenly snaps out of it. Cyan then asks Elise if she's told anyone else about this and she says it's all in the past. Crans never showed any remorse. Suddenly, Elise pulls him into a hug. She cries, saying he doesn't have to carry such a heavy burden alone. Whenever he needs, he can count on her. Cyan says that from now on, he will protect her. But suddenly, she says she can't stay any longer because something has come up and she needs to handle it. However, she tells him to take care of himself while she's away. At this moment, Yelkin feels something strange. Elise gives him a tight hug, thanking him for taking care of her brother. Yelkin was about to protest, saying he doesn't take care of this troublemaker, but Cyan quickly tells him to stay quiet. Some time passes and it seems like Elise is leaving. Even though Cyan is smiling, he knows it's been a long time since he's seen her this serious. The scene shifts to the past, where Cyan is taking hits from a sword. It's Crayons asking if he's already tired and calling him a motherless bastard, ordering him to get up. Shannon, frustrated, says there's no need for him to say such things since he's already won. But he takes another hit to the face and Crayons tells him to shut up. The beatdown continues until someone appears and tells Crayons to stop. It's Elise who demands to know what he thinks he's doing and orders him to apologize to Cyan immediately. Shan knows from the look on her face that this is going to cause chaos at home. But maybe this is a good way to reveal the truth about the people around her and somehow change her destiny. Someone delivers a few letters to him saying they're for him. Yelkin mentions that one is from the academy and another is from the cleaning staff. Shan grabs the black letter and says the other one must be from the imperial court. Yelkin takes a look and confirms it. Both he and Karam seem interested in what the court wants. Shen simply says it's an invitation to a banquet. And the black letter, of course, is an assassination order. It's for the death of a man named Dranian Nephelis, set to happen at the banquet. This shocked the entire kingdom, since the man is the emperor's younger brother. Karam asks if he's going, and San says yes, because there are things he needs to handle. In the meantime, he wonders why that damned woman gave him this mission, especially since in his past life it was assigned to someone else. Karam notices that the banquet invitation came directly from Aaron. She jokes that Shengen finally received a love letter. He immediately activates sword manipulation and the blade nearly hits her, making her fall face first to the ground. At that moment, someone calls out, saying, "Dad, I'm hungry." Yelkin looks shocked and Cyan asks what's wrong, but his own expression changes immediately. Let's not mention it, but yeah, she's grown. That's all. The scene shifts to the exterior of a castle, where someone runs to open the door. It's Miss Elise, apparently arriving at House Vert. The butlers comment on her return, but she just wants to know where the Duchess is. The Duchess is calmly reading a book until she hears a loud knock at the door. Elise storms in, and as the Duchess greets her, saying it's been a long time and asking how she's been, Elise raises her hand and slaps her hard across the face. Everyone is shocked, and a butler asks why the guards aren't doing their job. From the floor, the Duchess asks if Elise has lost her mind. But Elise responds that it's the Duchess who should be asking herself that question, especially since she tried to kill Cyan. The Duchess is alarmed that Elise knows about this. Of course, she denies it, claiming she'd never do such a thing, and asks if Elise has any evidence. Elise says that by asking for evidence, the Duchess made everything perfectly clear. As the Duchess orders the guards to act, she continues screaming, asking what they're waiting for, and commanding them to restrain Elise. The guards leap toward Elise, apologizing as they go. Well, this isn't going to go well for them, is it? Elise dodges the first one and knees him in the neck. She activates a spiritual magic called Undyne and takes them all down. The Duchess trembles as she watches all the guards fall in the blink of an eye. She tells Elise not to come any closer and asks why she's doing this. Elise simply responds that Shan's guardian already confessed everything. He admitted to receiving orders to kill the boy 2 years ago. The Duchess claims it's ridiculous for Elise to act based on the words of a mere servant, but Elise tells her to shut up, saying she will have to face the consequences because everything will be reported to their father. Her time is up. With that, she walks out. The Duchess, however, thinks to herself that the foolish girl still doesn't understand anything. Duke Williers had no interest in anything except that one child. She immediately sends word to him, saying she knows about the assassination attempt and asks what the problem is. Surprised, Elise tells her father that one of his children almost died. The Duke says he won't make any excuses. He simply believed Cyan would survive. Elise protests, saying it was extremely dangerous as Cyan was just a child fighting 6 knights. He only survived thanks to one of them deciding to protect him. The Duke laughs and asks if she truly believes that false knight saved Cyan. That man was nothing more than a simple worker. Elise questions whether he's saying Cyan killed all those knights by himself. The father steps closer to Elise and remarks that she knows very little about her little brother. He hands her a letter and tells her to take a look. She asks what it is, and he explains it's an invitation to the imperial banquet. He wants her to attend in his place. It would be a good opportunity for her to relax and stop worrying so much about Cyan. He's much stronger than she imagines, and soon she'll realize it. Bang, the door shuts in her face. Elise walks through the corridors, wondering how she's supposed not to worry about her 13-year-old brother. That's when someone calls out to Miss Ellis. She brightens up upon seeing Cecilia, who welcomes her back. Cecilia rushes over and hugs her, asking how she managed to stay away for so long without even writing a letter. Cecilia Lean is a knight from the elite squad of the Order of Light. From the beginning, she's been Elise's supporter, teacher, and friend. Elise then asks Cecilia what she thinks about a change of scenery. It's time for the two of them to head to the Imperial City. The scene shifts to a carriage. Inside, Nana is gazing out the window, exclaiming that she sees a little deer. The boys keep insisting that she learn how to hide her tail. She concentrates for a moment, and everything seems to disappear. Shan thinks to himself that at least his life is a bit easier when she can hide everything. He asks if she remembers what he told her. She responds that she does. Right now, she's just his maid. Still, he's nervous, sure she's going to cause some trouble. Then they hear something outside. Shan asks Yelkin what's going on, and Yelkin reports that there are some mountain bandits. Man, look at these poor fools. Kids, just go home. This won't end well for you. Yelkin, go deal with them quickly. Nana asks what's happening, and San tells her it's nothing. Before the bandit can even say anything else, Yelkin has already taken one down with a neck strike. The rest of the gang shouts for their leader and leaps at Yelkin, but he remains calm, activating a sequence of consecutive slashes. Ah, I know this reference. Is he about to go bald? He sheaths his sword, and all the bandits are dead. Now he's a force to be reckoned with. With that, Cyan tells him to get back in the carriage, and Yelkin announces that they're leaving. Elsewhere, someone slams a sheet onto a desk, saying it's the list of all the banquet guests. Sirika thanks her and is asked if the plans shouldn't be postponed. Sirika responds that no, they need to go through with this because the man must die. The woman is curious about why there's such urgency to kill Dranian Nephelis. Sirika explains that he's a vile predator who uses his power to target married women. The sooner he dies, the better. And to top it off, he's her fiancé. What a plot twist. Sirika then notices someone unusual on the guest list. A person with such a fragile body that they rarely attend any classes, but an extremely rare genius with proficiency in 20% of all attributes. Lunav River, the granddaughter of the master of Garen's Academy of Magic. Sirika knows Lunav has been hidden from the world like a precious gem. So why is she exposing herself at this banquet? Her aide explains that it was Master Regents himself who sent her. Sirika isn't pleased, unsure of his plans. What she knows for sure is that something is bound to happen at this banquet. Of course, right, especially since she's planning to kill her fiancé. Well, not her. She's sending our boy. The scene shifts to the city as the group arrives. Accidentally, Nana bumps into someone. A man starts scolding her, asking what she thinks she's doing, until she apologizes and asks what's wrong. Man, if you knew her age, you wouldn't be smiling like that. He takes off running. Nana remarks how nice everyone in this city is, while Cyan just wants her to stay away from that creep. But it's clear Nana's problem is that she doesn't suspect anyone. Then Yelkin points out her eyes, asking Shan to take a look. Shin immediately notices trouble. Her pupils have turned black, and she says she's hungry. When that happens, she starts emitting an aura that makes her easy to locate. Cheyenne tells Yelkin to get her to a restaurant immediately. Yelkin grabs the girl and rushes off. A while later, she's already devoured about 80 plates. Cyan comments that at least he brought plenty of money, but then he feels a strange mana in the air. Someone approaches, saying it's a pleasure to meet him, and asks if he's the boy named Cyan Vert. Here we go again. Shen is confused that she knows his name and asks who she is. However, she just ignores him, sits down, and asks if he doesn't mind. Our boy. Tell her. Answer already. She then introduces herself as Luminov and says she's a new student at the academy. Cheyenne thinks he's heard that name before. He says he doesn't pay much attention to juniors, which is why he didn't know her. She says it's expected since no one is as famous as him. Meanwhile, Nana is asking Yelkin if she's a friend of Cheyenne, and he replies that he has no idea, but she doesn't seem very friendly. Lunav remarks that it seems, given he's hanging out with a knight, he must be an employee and is quite close to both. He had a much more caring personality than she imagined. The protagonist just responds that he sees no reason to eat separately from them. However, he's already noticed that even though they just met, she's praising him way too much. So what's her real reason for getting close to him? At that moment, Lunav asks if he's going to the Imperial banquet. He says yes and asks how she knows that. She replies that it's obvious when someone from the academy comes to this place. She says she's happy to know they'll meet again at the banquet because she's also invited. At that moment, Cheyenne realizes she must have some form of nobility at the very least. Suddenly, she stands up and says she, unfortunately, has to leave. But he better remember the name Lunav. And with that, she departs, asking him not to forget. That's when Cheyenne seems to remember this crazy girl. She's the granddaughter of the Grandmaster of the Magic Academy, which makes him wonder if that man sent her there. He remembers that in his past life, Lunav died extremely young while still a student in that place. Some said it was because her body was very delicate, but others were sure it was due to the experiments she endured at the Magic Academy. The problem now is that he's getting involved with a lot of people he didn't know in his past life, which means things are going to change even more in the future. And it also makes him wonder why it seems like so many people are involved in this banquet. Sometime later, Rin is fixing her hair. She looks at Resimus and asks how she looks. Kay gives her a thumbs up, saying she looks amazing and the best version of herself yet. That's because she wants her to make up her mind already since she's tried on a dozen dresses. But she grabs another one, saying she's still not satisfied. Rezimis then says she's sure Cyan would already like this one. She turns around asking what her dress has to do with Cyan. Rezimis just replies that it's obvious since she was the one who sent the invitation. The poor girl is blushing, not knowing what to say, until the maid arrives with a gift from Prince Lunel. Rin seems a bit confused since it's not like her brother to do something like that. Meanwhile, Rezimis is praising it, saying Cyan will surely think it's wonderful. Time passes and we finally reach the much talked about banquet. Full of nobles walking around, and our boy is leaning against the wall with his hands in his pockets looking cool. He looks to the side and says that if Kellen is here, it means Estelle has also arrived. Kellen confirms this and says that at the moment he's with Prince Lunel. However, he has something to say. Cyan asks if something happened. Kellen just says he has a bad feeling that many people will be in danger, including himself. That's because Estelle ordered him to leave the Imperial City before the banquet began. He said some things would happen, but they'd be for the greater cause. Cyan wonders if Estelle was behind the bloody banquet back then. Kellen says he's afraid for Cyan's safety, who tells him not to worry and to leave the city. However, Kellen questions whether it's really safe for him to stay there. Cyan says it is and tells him to leave immediately. With that, Kellen retreats. Meanwhile, Cyan thinks that this whole small mess is clear. Estelle was a far bigger scumbag than he imagined. Karam asks if by chance he's concerned about the lives of innocents. He says not really, he just finds what that guy is doing amusing. But more importantly, he'd have to postpone today's assassination. At that moment, Kellen activates a psychic resonance and tells Sirika that her dress looks great. Well, I agree. Then he informs her that today's death will have to wait. She asks why, and he responds that he received new information. This place is going to turn into a pool of blood. He can't explain because they're out of time, and for now, she should just keep an eye on what's happening. She asks if he's sure, and if the source is reliable. He says he's very familiar with the person who might be behind all this and is now certain. But she doesn't need to worry because maybe her disgusting fiancé will also be one of the victims. She blushes and asks how he knows it's her fiancé. He just turns around saying he's off to work. But then, from behind, Eliz calls out to her. Sirika turns, confused, and sees her looking stunning, saying she missed her master. Sirika asks what she's doing there, and Ellis says she came to clear her head. But now she's worried since Elise will also get caught in this mess. That's when someone approaches, saying they see two beautiful flowers before their eyes. Clearly, this is not someone Sirika wants to see. It's apparently her fiancé, the beloved Dranian Nephelis. Yes, from his smile, it's obvious he's not a good person. Meanwhile, our boy approaches Yulkin and says he has a job for him. Yulkin pounds his chest, saying he's ready for duty. Cyan tells him to cut it out, thinking Yulkin is way too confident these days. Maybe drinking dragon blood and all the training has turned him into a true warrior. He then tells him to go to the aqueducts and keep an eye on the area. However, Yulkin says he's scared because it's too dark, and Cyan immediately takes back that comment about confidence. He orders him to go right away and stop making excuses. But then Yulkin tells him to look behind him. Someone extremely suspicious was watching him. Immediately, Cyan moves to attack, saying he'll handle it. He grabs hold of someone only for Cyan to shout at him to get off. It was poor Emily who had been squashed. Poor girl. The scene then shifts to someone descending a staircase carrying a torch. They reach the lowest level and announce that the time has come. They call for all the servants to rise. Back at the banquet, Erin is there, angry that someone hasn't shown up. She touches her necklace, thinking she should have expected this from him. But that's when Yulkin introduces himself and says it's a pleasure to meet her. Erin immediately recognizes Luna of Rainriver. Luna says she's honored to be remembered by royalty. Erin smiles and says she'd never forget a prodigy from the kingdom of Guren. As the voice of the Empire, she welcomes Lunav to the banquet. Luna of Rainriver compliments Erin's kindness and says it would be great if Cyan could see how nice she is. Erin, a bit confused, asks if Lunav knows Cyan. Luna of Rainriver says she spent some time with him yesterday. Erin becomes confused at the thought of them being so close. But instead of just thinking it, she accidentally says it out loud. Luna of Rainriver smiles and says it's as she suspected. She teases that Erin has a crush on Cyan. Before Erin can react, someone screams. The two of them look to the side as a woman tries to alert the guards, but is struck in the neck. The two are confused, wondering how someone got in, because there's an assassin inside the Imperial Palace. The masked man looks at her and says the princess has been located. The scene shifts to Nana introducing herself to Emily, who is shocked. She falls to her knees, devastated to see that the new maid is younger and prettier. She asks Shan if she's being replaced, and Cyan says no. But he's more curious to know why Ishil brought her there. Emily says she thinks Ishil wants her as his maid because he even asked her to work for him. Obviously, Cyan doesn't like hearing that. We then see the moment Eshil asked her to be his maid. He says she seems so lonely ever since Cyan went to the academy. But back in the present, Emily says she refused because she has to wait for her lord. She asks if he's sure, and she confirms, but Eshil isn't giving up. After all, he brought her to this place. At that, Cyan tells Jokum to protect Nana and Emily because things are about to get dangerous. He recalls that in his past life, she wasn't in this place. The fact that he sent Kellen already proves he's been watching him for a long time. But he won't allow his brother to hurt his people. There's chaos outside. Suddenly, Emily shows a ribbon and says Ishil sent it as a gift for his brother. She panics because she forgot to deliver it, but Nana notices something strange. Something red is seeping from the crystal inside. It seems to have a specific smell. In another part of the castle, someone sheaths a sword. It's Eshel speaking to the prince, saying everything has begun. The prince smiles back, saying the day they've been working toward has finally arrived. Eshel praises the knights the prince sent and says the recipients must have also received their gifts. The prince smiles again and says with all of this, the empire will rise from its decline. The honest brother agrees, saying it's time to show everyone. Who does the empire truly need? Back at the banquet, someone is telling everyone to run this way. It's Erin urging them to evacuate and let the guards handle it. Lunav tells her to run as well, but Erin says she needs to get everyone out first. Her friend says she'll join her and Erin thanks her. Meanwhile, the masked man is slashing through all the guards. One hears a scream, and when he looks to the side, he sees more enemies arriving. Another knight is killed, and the man doesn't know what to do, until someone calls for the commander. They warn that the area is full of mandrakes, which are high-level creatures. The problem is that this type of monster should only exist on the front lines. So what is it doing here? As he despairs without a solution, one of the creatures is completely blown apart. It's Sirika, looking stunning and strong, telling them to evacuate. The poor commander asks if she's an instructor from the academy, without noticing that someone is approaching from behind him. But from behind his back, Eris arrives and slices the threat in half. She tells him to run and leave it to her. Now that's true bro power, folks. The general tells all the knights to run and help those who are evacuating. However, the mandrakes keep attacking and the two prepare themselves. That's when another one runs past them from behind and they realize they're being ignored. The attack is heading straight for Erin. Sirika warns that the princess is the target. Just as Erin is about to lose her head, the general saves her. He orders everyone to protect the princess. But, oh boy, some blood splashes onto her face and she starts crying. Here comes the sadness. Oh, it's just the general. We don't care about him. Poor guy. But Erin is upset that Captain Morris has died. She begs Morris not to die. She notices he died with his serious expression intact. She begins blaming herself, saying it's all because of her. Meanwhile, Lunav casts a water explosion. Combined with a wind explosion, it creates a tsunami. Erin is impressed that a second-year student can use fusion magic. Lunav says it's too late for that guy and Erin needs to evacuate immediately. She's a bit sad, but the mandrakes are closing in, and it's better to run. The guards urge her to leave quickly, assuring her they'll handle it. They wouldn't let the captain's sacrifice be in vain. Lunav starts yelling at her to start moving. Erin closes her eyes and says she'll never forget his sacrifice. Suddenly, the knights are surrounded by a golden aura. Erin says she's cast a temporary barrier on everyone because of the mandrake's poison. Even a simple touch could be fatal, so this would protect them. She orders that none of them die. The men smile and thank her, but they have that look of, yeah, we're gonna die. But off they go, charging at the mandrakes. Slash here, slash there. Then one of them gets impaled in the chest. Everyone is thrown aside. Ellis tells them all to get out of the way and unleashes a freezing attack. She runs toward Erin, telling her she needs to leave now. However, Erin has no idea who this woman is, and Elise introduces herself as Ellis of House Vert. The mandrakes roar, but Sirika leaps in, slashing through everything. The problem is that no one at the academy can know she's a dagger user. If they do, they'll start associating her with the Mist Group. Unfortunately, given the destruction around her, it's not the time to worry about that. She uses an attack that our boy has used before, 8 pedal strikes. The mandrakes finally stop moving. But what the knight doesn't see is an assassin right behind him. Oh wait, there's no assassin anymore. He's been sliced in half. Sirika tells them to stop letting their guard down because there are many enemies around. She only hopes Elise can evacuate everyone safely. But what she wants to know is what this terrifying sensation she's feeling is. Running through the corridors, Erin is more concerned about the fact that Elise is Xian's sister, and she starts to realize she has no idea where he is either. That's when the wall explodes and a creature appears in front of them. Ellis finds it strange that the monsters are showing up exactly where they are. The problem is that a crawler is a high-level night monster. Erin activates a chain trap while Lunav uses a fire lance. The creature's feet are caught, forcing it to defend against the lance. Ellis is impressed that the two girls are far from weak. She decides she needs to show these Academy juniors that she's strong too. The creature roars and sends a blue attack their way. Lunav activates a protective barrier and Ellis appears behind it. But of course, before attacking, she delivers an epic line. She declares that as a knight of House Vert, she'll make this creature regret everything. She activates a water blade and chops off the creature's arm. Back in the hall, Sirika has cleared the area. Finally, it seems she's killed the last of them. She approaches to remove a mask, thinking these assassins seem like monsters, but something was off. And then she's startled. These assassins are actually puppets. A long forbidden spell allows someone to control the bodies of the dead, and to control so many requires an incredibly powerful person who has prepared for a long time. Something on this scale was certainly not done by just one person. Maybe someone is trying to start a war. Some of the assassins are killed, and someone asks if these are the last of them. A man collapses with his sword on the ground, and two knights approach from behind, asking if His Majesty is alright. He tells them not to worry, as at least he has them by his side. One of them, Eshel, offers help and says he'll assist His Majesty. Meanwhile, the blonde guy is just observing. The vile blonde says not to worry because the knights will handle the rest. The king need not concern himself, they'll keep an eye on him. The crawler is finally killed and Elise wonders where all these monsters are coming from. But suddenly, they're surrounded by a bunch of assassins again. Back at the moment, Emily hands over Eshel's gift to Cyan. Yelkin comments that he finds this very strange. After all, Eshel has never sent Shan a gift. He's always noticed that his boss harbors a sort of resentment toward his brother, something that seems much deeper than simple sibling rivalry. But then Karnan warns them that they need to run. Something extremely dangerous is coming their way. Emily, confused, asks why the girl's eyes are like that. And then suddenly, the wall behind them explodes. He turns and tells her to hide. Another high-level creature has appeared in that place. In another part of the castle, the rest of the guests are panicking and trying to escape. Among them is Sirika's cowardly husband, terrified of dying. He managed to be one of the first to flee, but right at the exit, a group of assassins was waiting. He cannot die there, no matter what, because he's eagerly anticipating spending quality time with his future wife. He asks the man beside him if the back door is truly safe, to which the man confirms it is. But just as he's about to seek further reassurance, something pierces through his head. The man is separated from his senses in an instant. The crowd screams in terror as the man's body collapses like discarded garbage. Everyone assumes this is the end for them. That's when a blue drop appears and Ellis activates a water explosion. She calls out to Luna to cast a freezing spell, creating ice spikes that pierce all the assassins. The knights stand there, dumbfounded, unsure of who these two women are. Elise confidently steps forward and introduces herself as Ellis of House Vert. This girl loves announcing her name. One of the knights spots Erin and celebrates her survival. Meanwhile, Luna struggles to get up, assuring everyone she'll recover soon. She warns that the next attack will start any moment and that they need to escape. The knights step forward, vowing to protect the princess. The nobles behind them are all begging for victory, but Erin tells them not to worry. She will give everything. She has to stop the enemy. She has realized that no matter how many times they kill them, the enemies keep reappearing. It's as if they're tracking something among them. What could it be? Nothing suspicious about that necklace around your neck, right, Erin? Back with Emily, a behemoth enters the room. She pleads with Yelkin to do something or they'll die. But Yelkin can't understand why high-level monsters are appearing in the Empire. Still, after being protected so many times by Xian, it's his turn to protect someone. The only problem is that Emily is clinging to him way too tightly. The behemoth roars and Yelkin tells her to back off. The creature charges to attack and he manages to block with his sword. He's excited, thinking he might handle this, until he gets hit by a series of blows. Emily asks if he's sure, and he insists he will protect them. The creature lunges to bite both of them. Yelkin, seeing no way out, apologizes to San, but the behemoth takes a punch to the face and crashes to the ground. Yelkin is shocked and Emily asks what that was. Of course, you already know. Nana is transforming back, revealing her true form. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the castle, assassins continue attacking Erin. The knights are dealing with some while the others handle the rest. The problem is, it doesn't seem to end, and whoever orchestrated this planned it exceptionally well. At this rate, the knights will soon start to fall. Erin realizes she needs to find another solution. That's when one of the knights gets slashed across the face and their mask falls to the ground. Ellis realizes they are fighting puppets or undead controlled by magic. She starts thinking about the most efficient way to deal with dark magic. The first thing that comes to mind is the holy magic of Lumendo's light. She knows there's only one way to do this. She calls out to Erin and asks her to bless her sword with light magic. Erin hesitates, explaining that this would remove the knight's protection. The knights tell her not to worry, they'll hold the line for as long as they can. For as long as they can probably means they'll die the second she lifts the magic, but oh well. Now Elisa's sword glows brightly with the blessing. Combining elements like she did with Luna was challenging, but combining magic with a spiritual art is much easier. It takes time, but she finally prepares to give it her all with this strike. Meanwhile, I wonder where Shan is. He better be doing something really important. And there he is, cutting down puppets and mandrakes. Our dear Shan knows this is all tied to Eshel somehow. He's convinced Boris has started working under Eshel's influence. Karam comments that he never thought humans with this level of necromancy still existed. Shan explains that the person who enjoys this kind of magic also has another favorite method, using stones from fortified creatures to create new monsters. Karam mentions feeling that magic emanating from a certain direction. Shan notes that the place is a bloody mess, but before resolving it, he needs a change of clothes. Meanwhile, Elise is channeling immense power. Luna recognizes it as the spirit of Miriam. She's baffled as to how Ellis summoned it. Magic and spiritual power are extremely unstable. She warns that Ellis needs to stop or her body won't withstand it. Miriam places her hand on Elise's head and asks why she's in such a hurry. She remarks it's a pity for a child blessed by Pruwin to face such a cruel fate. She prepares her arms and declares she's extremely irritated. With a single gesture, she creates an explosion, forcing everyone to back away. Erin is awestruck by the sheer power in such a simple movement. The problem is, as assassins are killed, others are reanimated. Erin pleads with Ellis to stop before she ends up dying alone. But Ellis knows she must finish this before things get worse. She resolves to make the most of the spiritual invocation. She prepares an attack using all the power of the Spirit King. But suddenly, someone grabs her arm. The goddess pauses for a moment, leaving Ellis confused. No one knew who that person was. Who could this mysterious figure be? Elise wonders who this entirely different kind of puppet might be, and she has no idea what this black mist surrounding them is. The problem is that she can't move or even pull her hand away. Cyan stands still while his aura envelops her. The goddess then tells her it's time to say goodbye. It seems her journey will end today. Shin releases Elise's arm and she collapses to the ground, trying to understand what kind of mist this is. As the goddess fades away, she tells Elise to remember she's always welcome in Pruina. Erin is still confused, and Lunav comments that the figure blocked Elise's spirit manifestation. The assassins begin advancing again. Poor Elise now unable to defend herself. Don't worry, there's a cool-headed guy around to take care of everything. Now Erin realizes the man in front of them isn't an enemy. Cyan continues cutting down enemies until he pauses for a second. As he suspected, the creatures seem to be following the scent of something coming from the princess. He asks Karam if she senses anything unusual in the area. Karam mentions sensing something magical from Lunav. Shin asks for something else, and Karam finally says there's a magical creature's energy emanating from the princess's necklace. He tells her he'll need her help as he moves forward. Shan slams the ground, creating a spatial distortion. A domain of mist begins spreading outward. The puppets start disintegrating into smoke, and the knights are alarmed as the space around them shifts. As the creatures attempt to advance, they become trapped in the ground and seem to die. Elise notices the mist is consuming the puppets. In a matter of moments, the entire area falls silent, as if nothing had happened. Erin is puzzled at how someone can handle so many creatures at once. That's when she notices Lunav on the ground. Just as she considers helping her, Shan appears behind her. Everyone turns to address the princess, but she already has a knife to her neck. Erin feels a strange familiarity with this mysterious figure. He strikes the necklace, risky even its location on her neck. Everyone screams for the princess, but suddenly he vanishes. He reappears beside Lunav, and Erin panics. She orders him to step back and casts a light ray. The attack hits him directly, but he merely turns into mist. Shagan then leaves a message telling everyone not to worry because he has no ill intentions. He assures them that the creatures won't follow anyone anymore since the jewel has been destroyed. He instructs everyone to head to the front entrance, which he has already cleared. A knight approaches Erin, asking if she's unharmed. She's more focused on figuring out who that person was, but reassures him that she's fine. She then asks about Ellis and Lunav. Both are getting up, and Ellis suggests they hurry to the entrance. She decides to figure out who the stranger was later. For now, the priority is saving the girls. However, Lunav, with her magical sensitivity, seems to recognize Mr. Xian. Back with Nana, the behemoth lies defeated on the floor. Emily is trembling, questioning whether Nana could truly be a maid. Yelkin admits he has no idea since Nana has never done anything like this before. Not only has she killed the creature, but she was also devouring it. In Shan's past life, rumors surrounded the banquet's true purpose. Many believe it was orchestrated by Princess Erin, desperate to inherit the throne. But now Cyan understands that the necklace given to her by Eshel was part of a grand scheme. Together with the prince, Eshel eliminated the creatures and became hailed as heroes of the empire. In the end, they were the ones who benefited the most from this incident. Karam asks if Xian is suggesting those two planned everything. Sacrificing so many lives for something like this makes her think humans are worse than demons. Shan responds that this is only the beginning. He adds that he's not much different, having participated in numerous massacres in his past life. Karam then asks if he's leaving already. He says yes, as Nana must be waiting for him. The Imperial Knights should be able to handle the rest. Karam mentions something that's been bothering her. Our boy asks what it is. She says the smell from the princess's necklace matches the one Emily brought. Back in the room, Nana comments on a delicious scent coming from Emily. Emily panics, insisting she isn't as good as she seems. Meanwhile, Yelkin can't understand why Nana has suddenly turned into a monster. Worse, she's trying to kill Emily for some unknown reason. He needs to stop her somehow, but he can't bring himself to raise his sword against her. Nana leaps, shouting that she can't control herself. Yelkin closes his eyes, unable to find a solution. A solution? Cyan steps in and takes a hit to the back. Karam sneaks behind Emily, and Cyan tells her to resolve the situation quickly. Karam removes the necklace and throws it to the ground. Before Emily can react, Karam crushes it underfoot. Karam commands Nana to wake up and return to reality, reminding her that her lord is there. Slowly, Nana reverts, confused about what just happened. She sees the destruction on the boy's back and asks if she caused it. Shan reassures her, saying it's fine, it doesn't hurt, and it wasn't her fault. However, she collapses to the ground in tears, crying that she didn't want to do this. Yelkin and Emily are at a loss for words, while Cheyenne simply tells them they should leave since the place is in chaos. Meanwhile, Prince Sevelis is wondering what's going on. The hallways were supposed to be swarming with monsters, but there's no sign of them. The king comments that the creatures have vanished, and Sevelis celebrates, saying they're incredibly lucky. However, Eshel has already noticed that something is off. That's when they hear someone call in for their father. It's Erin and her group emerging safely. From Eshel's clenched jaw, it's clear he's not pleased. Erin embraces her father, expressing her relief that he's safe. She then notices her brother Lunel standing nearby. The king explains that it's thanks to Lunel and Eshel that they were able to stay safe. Sevelis comments that it's good to know Erin didn't die. Erin responds that she feels the same way. Though she has many questions for him, she knows this isn't the time. The knights approach to protect Erin and pay their respects to the king, who thanks them for safeguarding his daughter. Erin glances over and notices Eshel whispering something to Sevelis. She knows they're planning something. Suddenly, Sevelis turns and places his sword against Lunev's neck. He declares that he's certain who's behind all this. It must be the granddaughter of the Grandmaster of the Academy of Sorcery. He announces that from now on, she's under arrest. Elise is baffled, unable to understand what the prince is thinking, while Eshel remains silent. The king and Erin orders Sevelis to lower his sword, demanding to know what he's doing. But the prince argues that the situation is clear. The kingdom of Garen orchestrated this to bring down Usif. He claims Lunev was sent to create chaos and assassinate the Marquis. Lunev questions what evidence he has to support such accusations. Eshel suddenly mentions sensing strange magic near their location yesterday. The king asks if this is true and demands an explanation. Sevelis states they invited her in good faith but have always kept an eye on her. And with the evidence they have, it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light. The king acknowledges this and tells them to handle it. Sevelis assures him that they will. Poor Lunev realizes she's fallen into a trap. She wonders if this was part of her grandfather's plan. Lunev and the others from the Garan Academy are arrested. Meanwhile, Rezimus, who had been separated from the group during the battle, is with the noble knights. The next day, a funeral is held in the capital for all those who died in the massacre. Although Shan significantly reduced the death toll compared to his past life, the day is still remembered as the Bloody Banquet. Sometime later, Elise is applying bandages to Cyan. Shan tells her she doesn't need to, but she insists, saying it's the least she can do. She expresses relief that he managed to escape the monsters, which were incredibly dangerous. She also mentions that if it hadn't been for that man, she wouldn't have survived either. But she's curious about who he was. She remarks that the man was strangely the exact same size as Cyan. What a coincidence. She then comments that she's noticed his physique has improved significantly, and for his injuries it's clear he's been training hard. Shan turns away, awkwardly agreeing, and she teases him, asking why he's blushing. Shan dashes off, telling her to stop teasing him. At that moment, Eshel appears, remarking that the two of them are as close as ever. He asks if Shan is alright, who responds that he's fine and thanks him for his concern. Elise notices that Shan seems to be preparing for something. Shan then asks Eshel about the progress of the investigation. Elise wonders if Shan has also picked up on Eshel's unsettling nature, which sends chills down her spine. The blonde man explains that he's there precisely because of the investigation. They found a bracelet in Lunev's room containing one of the stones that attracted the creatures. Lunev had claimed it was a gift. Shan comments that if that's the case, they should focus on tracking down the suspect. Eshel agrees and asks if Shan received any gifts himself. Shan says he doesn't recall receiving anything and asks if they've identified who gave the bracelet to Lunev. Eshel reveals that they believe it was a merchant who frequented the palace, but the merchant was found dead earlier that day. That's why they're working tirelessly to uncover the truth. Eshel presses Shan again, asking if he's absolutely certain he didn't receive anything. Shan knows this isn't a genuine investigation. They're merely looking for someone to pin the blame on. Elsewhere, Emily sits on a bench when a man approaches her. Shan knows she's in danger. Back in the room, someone complains of a headache. It's Cyan. Ellis insists he hasn't fully recovered and needs to rest. She tells Eshel that Shan has a back injury and is losing a lot of blood, so he should go to the infirmary. Eshel agrees and excuses himself, but Cyan states again that he has no memory of receiving anything. After all, anyone who tried to get close to him wouldn't have survived the massacre. Eshel thanks him for the answer, thinking to himself that he's lucky the girl didn't deliver the item. At least it spares him the trouble of eliminating another person. Yet at the same time, it frustrates him because Cyan was supposed to die at the banquet. Alice suddenly calls for our boy Shan and gives him another smack on the back, ordering him to lie down. But then we see blood dripping onto the floor and a maid asks why he's doing this. She says she did everything he asked, delivering the necklace to the princess. She pleads, swearing she won't tell anyone about this. The man replies that this is why her role ends here. And now he must complete his task to finish what's been started. After all this preparation only fills him with anger. He delivers a clean cut and tells her to rest in peace. He pauses, realizing he forgot something. Opening his grimoire, he mutters that he really needs to learn to deal with bodies. Out emerge creatures with countless eyes, which he orders to devour the remains. Looks like someone borrowed a power straight out of a shady librarian's book. Back with Emily, a man approaches and she glances behind her. Oh, relax, it's Yelkin, or rather Brian, bringing her some apples. These people really know how to build suspense. He sits down, commenting on how nice the weather is, but Emily wants to know how much longer they'll stay here. Brian responds that they'll remain until Cyan gives the order to return. Oh, it's the moment when Emily handed over Eshel's gift. The moment Cyan saw it, he instantly knew what it was. He destroyed it and told Emily to listen carefully. Neither the Imperial City nor House Vert would be safe for her anymore. She was to hide until further instructions were given. He called Brian over, explaining that he was extremely busy and would need him to protect Emily, and of course to look after Nana too. He told them they'd need to stay apart for some time. Now, only after all this do we finally learn that his name isn't Yelkin. It's Brian. Brian is worried, noting that he's never seen Shin smile like that. Emily asks if Nana is okay, and Brian explains that she's having trouble sleeping but seems to be recovering. Emily reflects on how much has happened since Shin arrived in this place. It's wild to think his maid has dragon blood, but this only makes her want to help Shin even more. Brian agrees, mentioning he's been thinking the same. Though he's distracted, recalling the moment she grabbed his arm. He's embarrassed, wondering why that moment sticks in his mind. Emily declares that together, they'll do their best for Cyan. Brian blushes and smiles, agreeing. The scene shifts to Sevelis questioning his father. He demands to know what he means by this decision. Sevelis insists the evidence is undeniable, and they can't let the suspects slip away. The king, however, calmly tells him to relax, explaining the decision is already made. Sevelis accuses him of being weak, saying he'll never maintain dominance over the continent with this approach. Almost taking a blow to the head, the king sternly orders him to be silent. The king acknowledges Sevelis' ambitions of continental dominance as noble in theory, but he reminds him that the Yusuf Empire borders not just the kingdom of Garen, but also the demon world Espana and Proina. Starting a war with Garan would leave them vulnerable on all fronts. Even if, by some miracle, they conquered the continent, the cost in lives would be astronomical. As emperor, he refuses to choose such a monstrous path. Sevelis, however, persists, claiming clear evidence exists. The king asks if he's referring to the obscuring stone, which catches Sevelis off guard since he didn't expect the king to know about it. The king remarks that his expression says it all. Since childhood, Sevelis has never known how to stop when he doesn't get his way. Sevelis, trembling, denies knowing anything. The king orders him to be quiet, questioning how he's fallen so low. He declares that at this moment, Erin is far more qualified for the throne than Sevelis. Finally, he commands Sevelis to leave his presence immediately. Obviously, Sevelis doesn't take kindly to hearing Erin's name. To him, that accursed child is ruining everything. Outside Erin's room, someone asks what the prince is doing there. The door opens and Rezimis steps out, explaining the princess is still recovering. But Sevelis responds by punching her in the face, knocking her to the ground. Erin confronts him, demanding to know the meaning of this while he laughs maniacally like the Joker. Staring him down, she calmly asks if he's here to see her or if there's something else he wants to hear from her. Sevelis is suddenly startled. Her aura is different. She doesn't seem like the same person he knew. Erin then declares that maybe he wants to hear that she, Erin Sevelis, received nothing from her brother. The prince trembles, realizing she knows everything. The scene shifts to the king asking Erin if she's certain she knows nothing about the matter. She confirms. The king explains that the necklace she carried wasn't an ordinary jewel. The stone within it, though rare, originates from a clan of dark magic users. It's something used to attract and control creatures. He'd received word from the Imperial City that someone secretly purchased this item. The known suspects are the merchant Gilbert and the maid Marilda. However, both are now dead or missing. The king found it odd that both the merchant Gilbert and the maid Marilda had frequent meetings with Sevelis. He asks Erin again if she's certain she didn't receive anything from her brother. Fiddling with her fingers, she responds calmly, no. She didn't receive anything from Sevelis. However, she comments that now that they've found the source of these stones, Luna should be released. She asks her father to free the girl who saved countless lives at the banquet. The king agrees and tells her she no longer needs to worry about it. Erin knows that if she reveals Sevelis was the one behind the necklace, the lives of those around her will become much more dangerous. The king might not execute Sevelis, meaning he'd remain alive and capable of harming those close to her. And she's tired of standing by while the people she cares about suffer. Back in the present, she asks Sevelis if he's satisfied with its outcome. He replies smugly that yes, he is. Exactly as she said, he never gave her anything. Erin affirms this, stating that's exactly what she told their father. Sevelis then questions her tone and suggests that if anyone overhears, they might think he's done something wrong. He mockingly suggests they so shut the mouth of her friend. Erin simply replies that it's unfortunate for him, but she has a visitor now. Sevelis asks if this person is really so important, and she says, yes, more important than you. Enter Cyan, who apologizes for overhearing the conversation. Caught off guard, Sevelis didn't sense him at all and wonders why he's here. Shin, with his usual aloof demeanor, says he overheard everything. Sevelis demands to know how long he's been eavesdropping. Shan responds nonchalantly that he doesn't have much presence, so he's been standing there the whole time. Sevelis snaps, saying he's not in the mood for games and calling Shan bold for speaking to a prince in such a manner. But Shan just calmly asks, and what are you going to do about it? Planning to silence me too. Sevelis begins to wonder if the rumors about these two being betrothed are true. But realizing the tension, he quickly shifts gears. He knows there's nothing to gain from making an enemy of Cyan Vert. Not only is she the daughter of his father's ally, but she also holds Eshel's favor. In a prior conversation with Eshel, Sevelis had explained that he wanted to eliminate Erin because she was threatening his position on the throne. What he couldn't understand was why Eshel wanted to deal with his own brother, given their father's unwavering trust in him. Eshel's response was chillingly simple: because he bothers me. Eshel was convinced Cyan harbored secrets beyond human comprehension. Back in the present, Sevelis remarks that now he understands what Eshel meant. He doesn't know why, but an immensely powerful aura radiates from this boy. Changing his expression, Sevelis raises his hands and says it was all a misunderstanding. Now that the confusion has been cleared, he'll take his leave. Cyan relaxes a little, noting that Sevelis isn't entirely depraved yet. He remembers how in the future Sevelis would be called a mad emperor, committing acts that would terrify anyone. As he departs, Sevelis even apologizes to Rezimus, who forgives him, asking only that they be more careful in the future. Finally, the door closes. Erin curses her damned brother and thanks Cyan. But Cyan says it was Erin who handled everything. She smiles and says she only acted confidently because she knew he was nearby. Cyan sits down, claiming he's just tired of standing. Erin adjusts her hair nervously, mumbling that it's okay if that's the case. Rezimus is baffled that Cyan doesn't pick up on the obvious, while she commends how composed he was before the prince. Cyan starts to leave, saying that now Sevelis knows they're allies, Erin won't face as many risks. Rezimus bids him farewell, realizing that he only came for business and is already gone. The scene shifts to Sevelis questioning Eshel about what they're going to do next. Sevelis swears the plan was perfect, but the people they wanted dead are all still alive. Worse, he's lost his father's trust entirely, and to him, he was supposed to be the sacred savior of the empire. A voice cuts in, saying the plan wasn't entirely a failure. It's Boris reporting for duty. He apologizes for the delay, explaining that he was handling a mission for Lord Shelley. Sevelis mentions hearing that Emily has gone into hiding and asks what this fruit business he referred to is about. Boris admits they underestimated the people surrounding Princess Erin. Sevelis fumes, accusing Boris of suggesting they should reflect on their actions. Boris apologizes and clarifies, showing a crystal. He explains that it contains the magic used by Erin's allies. Most of it is ordinary, but then a dark mist begins emanating from the crystal. Boris declares this to be an extremely rare and potentially dangerous magic. Some might even call it dark magic. It's the power of a cursed magical blade. Sevelis is stunned to learn that one of Erin's allies wields something so blasphemous. Meanwhile, we cut to a comical scene of Yelkin staring at a blue creature on a plate. He asked Emily what kind of gratin she said she was making. What's stranger is that Shan and Nana are eating it calmly. Emily cheerfully tells them to take it slow. Yelkin, however, wonders if the food is actually moving. Shan remarks that he's had enough and is full. He apologizes, explaining he has to leave before Eshel discovers this place. He only came to check on the three of them, but the danger is still too great. Shan explains that he's placed people to keep an eye on the house's surroundings, making it the safest place for now. He chuckles, but Emily asks him to promise he'll come back. He reassures her not to worry and instructs Brian to look after the two of them while he's away. Brian, unenthusiastic about the odd food they've been eating, mutters that he'll take good care of them. Outside the house, Surika appears and sarcastically comments about his free time for strolls. She demands an explanation. The bloody banquet, her fiancé's death. How did Cyan know all of this would happen? She warns him to be careful with his answers, as she might end up becoming his enemy. She asks again, who exactly is Cyan Vert? Shin simply replies, why does it matter? The Marquis was already a target. Surika retorts that it matters a great deal, as he could be a spy for another organization. Shan asks what she plans to do if that's the case. She unsheathes her sword, declaring the answer is obvious. She lunges at him, but Karim intercepts the attack. Surika demands to know if Karim will really stand in her way. Karim reminds her of the last time they fought, warning that she won't let anyone touch her master. The two immediately reignite their rivalry, both vowing to defeat the other. Karim conjures a red energy sphere, saying she'll show Surika something interesting. Surika, excited, readies herself, saying she's prepared. Karim unleashes the unyielding black mist, which seems to chase Surika. Surika dismisses it as useless, boasting that she can dodge anything, but the sheer explosion rattles her confidence. She realizes that being hit by it would mean instant death. She admits it's better for Karim to remain in her sword form, as otherwise she could be far deadlier. Karim grins, declaring the warm-up is over, and it's time to get serious. Surika grins back, ready for an all-out fight. Before things escalate further, Cyan activates sword manipulation, slamming Karim into the ground. Karim whines, asking to continue her fun, but Cyan commands both of them to stop. He reminds them that their commotion undermines the point of his hiding. Surika admits he's right and advises him to relocate. Cyan tells him to clean up and closes the door, leaving the two standing there with dumbfounded expressions. Inside, Cyan announces a change of plans, instructing everyone to prepare to leave. That's when a voice greets him, it's Lunav. She comments that it seems his family has grown since the last time. Shin, surprised she bypassed the mist barrier, asks how she found them. Lunav explains it's just a simple talent of hers and assures him no one else knows she's there. She asks about the commotion outside, but Shan dismisses it, asking why she's there. Lunav responds that she came to thank him. Shan shrugs, saying he didn't do anything deserving thanks. But Lunav insists she knows everything since the day he entered her. Everyone looks confused, trying to decipher her words. She clarifies she's talking about the aura that entered her when she was unconscious. She demonstrates her ability to summon fire and water, combine them, and modify them. She can even use a form of magic to locate specific people. She proudly asks if he doesn't think this gift from her grandfather is amazing. Shan dryly responds that it seems more like a curse, pointing out her injured body. Luna blushes and accuses him of being the one who entered. Shan ignores her and tells everyone to prepare to leave, saying he'll have a chat with her. Emily eagerly asks where they're going and Cyan replies it's to Ruin Academy. Emily beams with excitement, saying she can now take care of him daily. Ryan, however, looks disappointed, already dreading the food he'll have to endure. Later, Luna reflects on her childhood in cold, dark places being the subject of painful experiments. She endured it all, believing it was her duty as Rainriver's granddaughter. She asks Shan if he feels a similar sense of duty. He bluntly says no. Curious, she questions why he saved everyone but didn't want anyone to know. Shan explains it would only cause more headaches, which she probably understands. Luna pauses, saying she does. She then reveals that when their auras connected, she discovered his magical attribute. At first, she thought it was darkness, but now she isn't sure. She confesses that during their brief contact at the restaurant, she gathered information about him. Shan is surprised, not realizing she could deduce someone's magical attribute through touch. She asserts that on the day she collapsed, he implanted his magic into her. She demands to know what it is, certain it's not of this world. Shan acknowledges her curiosity and asks if she plans to report it to her grandfather. Luna dispels her magic, saying no, it would only bring more trouble. Shan smirks, asking if she's rebelling against Rainriver. Luna cryptically says he probably understands the reasons. She suddenly hugs him, thanking him for freeing her from a long-standing burden. Shin explains that her body is like a cauldron of flames, filled with magical attributes constantly clashing and mixing. However, someone had placed a sort of cap on her magic. The intention was to prevent her from losing any magic entirely, but it was also causing her power to heat up excessively. What overflowed from this cauldron was slowly extinguishing the flame of her life. All Cyan did was create a hole in that cap. He explains it was because he didn't want her to live as someone else's puppet. Still, he tells her there's no need to thank him. If she has nothing else to say, she can leave and keep their secret. But of course, she shouldn't overexert herself, it would be dangerous. Luna simply thinks to herself how adorable Cyan is. As she suspected, Cyan is a genuinely good person. Meanwhile, at the Garen Magic Academy headquarters, her grandfather slams the table, demanding to know what they're saying. The butler informs him that Luna has been exonerated and released. He asks if they should file a petition against the kingdom of Yusif. The grandfather replies with a resounding no, saying that's not the issue. Instead, he wants to know how she had the audacity to stop anywhere else before returning to him.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help grow this channel. Let me know in the comments which manhwa you'd like me to cover next. I'd love to bring your favorites to life. Just like this one, I'll dive into all the intense, action-packed, Reborn stories you love. See you in the next one.